Back in January 2003, many doubted the formula and the future of the Daytona prototypes. Now, 8 years on, the Rolex Sports Car Series is boasting its 100th race for the DPs, and the fans showing their support as we welcome you to Speed's coverage of a race that started as, and for many years was known as the Paul Revere 250. Nowadays, it's the Brumos Porsche 250, and it's round 8 of the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series. Hi folks, Lee Diffie, Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader with you here at Daytona International Speedway, Daytona Beach, Florida. And Cal, we can sometimes be guilty of getting caught up in the madness of a regular racing season, but it's landmarks and milestone events like this that kind of make us pause and stand back and enjoy and reflect.
Well, we're now in our 8th year of competition, Lee, and one thing remains the name of the game, that is spectacular racing, close finishes, particularly right here at Daytona. Now, I think the reason for this is a very level playing field. We've seen new chassis introduced over the last few years, but there is still no dominant player in town, and that makes it very exciting for everyone involved, particularly the fans.
Absolutely. People have come and gone in this series, but Dorse, one thing that has been the constant is the rules package. We need to talk about that. It's appropriate. We won't let it spoil our celebration, but there is a significant story involving the championship leaders.
Well, the fireworks started for Chip Ganassi's team before they got to Daytona. The team that's won 5 out of 7 races so far this year. Well, after their last race win at Mid-Ohio, they had their BMW power plant removed from the car. They had that power plant dynoed and taken apart. Now, in disassembly, they didn't find anything wrong. No illegal parts whatsoever. However, the dyno run showed the car to put out too much power outside the parameters preset by Grand Am, and with that came subsequent fines and penalties.
And we start with the first because there were 3 penalties, but the first involves the points and a massive 25-point penalty to the championship leaders from Team Ganassi. So their 32-point lead has shrunk to 7, and it's championship game on yet again in this 2010 championship. We'll tell you about the other penalties in just a moment, but first let's hear from the various parties involved, and let's start with Ganassi's Tim Keane.
Well, it's frustrating because we've worked really hard all year, and we deserve all the success that we've got. And, nobody at Chip Ganassi Racing did anything wrong. There was nothing illegal in the engine or on the car itself.
Obviously, we're disappointed. We think the penalty's pretty severe. I want to make it clear, too, though, that the teams had no knowledge of Dynan's actions, not involved in building the engine. It's our responsibility to meet this criteria, not the team's. It's also not BMW's responsibility either.
Well, anytime we have to issue a penalty, it's always difficult for a sanctioning body like Grand Am. But we know the Ganassi team is an excellent organization. They've done a fantastic job on the racetrack. We've known Steve Dynan for a long time, and we intend to have a long relationship with Steve. But when we find something that's clearly outside of our documented limits and the paper trail is clear, we're forced to act to protect the integrity of the rule book and the integrity of the sport.
And there we go. We'll get to the more details about those other penalties.
Well, there you can see it, 25 championship points. That is huge. Also, the team were fined $15,000. And moving on, 75 pounds has been added to that car, and that will stay there until they get that BMW power under the line they're looking for.
How badly did it affect the 01 in qualifying? Well, you could say it did. They're a second off the pace. Young Ricky Taylor continues his momentum and his growth. He is doing such a magnificent job. With more on the Daytona prototype class, we say hi to Speed's Chris Neville.
Yeah, Lee, and that's Ricky Taylor's second pole of the year. But more importantly, with that penalty, championship hopes that had essentially faded for the SunTrust team are now back on the horizon. They were 37 points back, now only 12 points back. Max, we got 5 races to go. You're 12 points back. How does that change the environment onto the team?
Fantastic. We are back on the hunt, and we're going to push even more than before. So it's great. We are back on. Fantastic.
Well, outside the front row, we've got the Gainesco 99. And really, when you sum up Daytona in July, this team has been fantastic. But the past 2 years, kind of a bittersweet podium finishes. Alex, the car is always so quick here. But last year, the year before, the 01, the 10 pulled that victory away. This year, car once again fast. But what would it mean to try and win that 100th Daytona prototype race?
Well, I think it just would be important to win a race. We've had a rough year, but those last 2 years were heartbreakers, both of them. Had a great race, both times, and hopefully we've addressed that situation that kept us out of the top step. So we're looking good today.
Well, they're looking strong, and hopefully have a good day. Lee?
Thanks, Chris. That takes care of Daytona prototypes. Let's talk about GT, and let's have a look at the top 5 in qualifying.
Well, there we can see that Mazdas look particularly strong here. They've shown a lot of form here over the years at Daytona. They take the top 4 spots in qualifying. Starting 5th, Scott Russell, who continues to impress.
And it's that familiar number 70 Speed Source Mazda at the top. It kind of looks like the Rolex 24, doesn't it, Brian Till?
Indeed it does, Lee. You know, when you talk about Daytona, you got to talk about Mazdas. In 7 of the last 8 races here, it's been a Mazda that started on the pole. In fact, the 70 car, Sylvain Tremblay, this will be his 3rd pole position. Outside him, another Mazda, the 30, Jordan Taylor behind the wheel. When he qualifies that car, it has always started on the front row, including 3 pole positions. Second row, it's full of Mazdas as well. On the outside, the 41 Dempsey Racing entry from James Gouet and Lee Keane. On the inside, the 68 Speed Source, Krista Dulu and Edwards behind the wheel there. You've got to go all the way to row 3 to find the 07, the first non-Mazda starter. That's the Corvette of Paul Edwards and Scott Russell, Mr. Daytona on 2 wheels. Can he do it on 4? But outside row 3, the 44, the Magnus Racing Porsche. These guys probably worked harder than anybody in the paddock all week long after a huge crash at Mid-Ohio. The 44, John Pugh, just moves over on John Potter down the front straightaway. The impact severe at the bridge. In fact, so big it cracked the engine block and tore the heads off this car. The crew definitely had to work long and hard hours to get it back together. It's not only back together, it is very quick. They've got a plan to get to the front here this weekend, Lee.
Thanks for that, Brian, and some important numbers there. Those guys, John Bedell and his men, have put in an enormous effort to get the Magnus Porsche 44 here to the World Centre of Racing and ready for the 8th round of the championship. We're moments away from the cars rolling off, and it's a significant day for the famous 59, not because of Brumos' involvement with the series, but particularly for their 2 drivers. We start with Darren Law and, of course, David Donohue. These 2 men are also starting their 100th race. They have not missed a single Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series event in the DP era. So we wish them a really successful run. And of course, let's not forget, they won back in 2009 at the Rolex 24. There's been some magical moments here at this amazing circuit. And let's take you back a couple of years at this event, the Brumos Porsche 250, the finish in 2008.
Alex Gurney puts the foot down. Green flies, and so too does the white. We are on our way home. A 1-lap sprint. Pruitt is not letting Gurney get away. This is not done yet. Oh, it's not there yet, is it? Is Pruitt going to do what the 61 did? He comes one high. Scott Pruitt gets it. Wow, just when you thought the Gainesco boys had it wrapped up, the Master does it.
Speed's coverage of the Rolex Sports Car Series is presented on Speed by Rolex, a crown for every achievement. And brought to you by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. Stable weather at the moment. There is a threat of rain here in Florida for this Brumos Porsche 250. We will wait and see. We'll cross our fingers. As you can see, cars rolling. We're not too far away from the start. But first, Dorse, let's get to the Burger King track map.
Well, everyone knows Daytona's a big oval with 31 degrees banking, 18 in a tri-oval, 3.56 miles long when you look at the road course. And thanks to our friends at iRacing.com, we'll do an onboard, and you can see the complexity coming through that tri-oval and trying to come down in the infield. Here, top gear, 198 miles an hour as you enter turn 1. You're going to go down from top gear down into 3rd as you go around this corner. 63 at the apex there, and accelerate up to the very slipperiest corner on the whole racetrack, the International Horseshoe right here. The grip level very low. You try to get on the power as soon as possible because there's a wrong straightaway right behind this. You'll see the drivers quits through here. We'll see some spinouts here today. Now, up ahead, the kink, fastest infield corner. As you go through that kink, you're running 154 miles per hour. Hard braking here. Series of right-hand corner. And you're going to now start approaching to go back on the banking. This is a good drag race zone and a good brake zone at the end to set up a pass. But once you make this left-hand corner, it's back to what Daytona is known for, the high bank speedways at Daytona.
Just love that view each and every race. This is a pretty neat view as well. Mike Forrest aboard the 8 Corsa Car Care Starworks BMW entry. And, of course, that being a Dynon-powered BMW car, that gets the same weight penalty that the Ganassi 01 received. We go aboard the pole-sitting car with 20-year-old Ricky Taylor. He and his father have now had a pole in the Daytona prototype era here at this event. And for this young man who's been coming here since he was a baby, that is significant. He loves this place, loves this series, and he is really making a name for himself.
He really is. He's handling the pressure extremely well. Now we're on board with the visitflorida.com Mazda, the number 40 machine. Looking for a strong run here today.
And here the Magnus Racing Porsche that you saw being rebuilt after the big heavy crash at Mid-Ohio.
And we go aboard the 59 Brumos Porsche. Could this be the day for David Donahue and Darren Law? This car rolled off the truck amazingly well. They did not really do too many fine-tuning points on it, and they just got that good raw speed in qualifying, which is somewhat of a turnaround for this year. The GT Championship leading car gives us that view of Jeff Siegel and Emil Asentato, and we have 2 TRG Porsches here this weekend.
Yeah, we do. It's great to see TRG back with 2 cars. They've had 2 wins this year, but we see the 67 car starting from pit lane. Maybe there's a little bit of strategy that Kevin Buckler is already throwing out there.
Peter Bassett and Spencer Pumpelly will be in that car. Dorse, here's our race analysis as per usual, but a change at the race length.
And the race length of 2 hours and 30 minutes will change how things are going to be played out. I think today, guys, rain is a factor that we're going to have to watch.
Remember, folks, a regular sprint race for Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series is 2 3/4 hours, so 15 minutes less. Here is the weather. Go for it, weatherman.
Well, it's Africa hot inside those cockpits. You can see 150 degrees plus. We're expecting at the end of this 2.5-hour race. The heat just soaks through that entire monocoque, makes it really tough for these drivers out there.
The big picture, folks, in the series is it is championship back on. Many thought that the Ganassi were runaway winners already after 7 rounds. This is the 8th round, and it's championship back on. Just 7 points the margin between first and second in this series. Remember, split start, DPs start first, GTs will come second. We'll show you that in a moment. And it's a 20-year-old Floridian on the pole for his father's team. Ricky Taylor in the SunTrust Dallara will see the green first. Ready to go at Daytona on a huge weekend in front of all of the NASCAR fans. Let's go racing at Daytona, and Ricky Taylor gets a nice start.
John Fogerty goes defensive right away, gets to the inside. That's a smart move.
Look at Rojas looking to the outside of Darren Law down into turn 1. Can he take the long way around and make it stick?
GT start on the left of your screen. Sylvain Tremblay and Jordan Taylor, brother of Ricky, on the front row.
Looking at the DPs there, Rojas and Law definitely touched there, going through that little jog there, turn 2.
Oh, and Rojas goes to second. There's contact between the Brumos and the 99.
That's the 61. That's Mark Wilkins off to the edge of the road there as well.
On board with Darren Law, looking at Rojas.
Little argy-bargy, the gal, right at the beginning.
Remember, these teams do not have a lot of dry setup time. Yesterday morning's practice was effectively rained out on a drying racetrack. Then they went to qualify, and there you see Fogarty almost gets into the rear bodywork of Darren Law there. Maybe a little bit of retribution there. And look at Dion Van Malka. He took advantage of that argy-bargy, Dorse. He's up to 5th.
And you saw the cold tires right there because the Gainesco car just lit up the back tires. 2 big black marks as he tried to accelerate off that last corner.
Buddy Rice takes that low line. Look at Mark Wilkins in the draft of Von Moltke. Fogarty trying to come back on the 59 of Darren Law. It's all been on. However, look at the front of the pack as they stretch their legs to the bus stop. Ricky Taylor has already got a handy margin over the Telmex BMW.
Tires are not up to temp or pressure yet, Calvin. So, I mean, these first out laps to be aggressive like that, you really don't know what's under you.
No, you don't. They had a 20-minute practice session earlier this morning, and that was critical in really fine-tuning these race cars. But this car's been quick all year. Remember, Max Angelelli qualified on the pole with this very car for the 24-hour race. His teammate put it to the front here yesterday.
Look at Fogarty. He's working. He's building a move on Darren Law here. Through the tri-oval, heading to 1. Is he close enough to do anything to the Brumos Porsche?
Not yet.
Not this time round.
But I think Ricky Taylor's got that big lead on lap 1 because of all the stuff that went on those first 3 or 4 corners, Calvin. A lot of pushing and shoving.
Yeah, Rojas is very aggressive in particular. Here we see the action down into the horseshoe. Look at Rojas, forces his way through. Law tries to take advantage as well. He gets Fogarty sideways. I think that's why Fogarty had a little go at him later in the lap.
Mike Shank Ford on pit road. Brian, what did you see with the 6 Dallara?
6 is on pit road. Strategic call, basically, lead. They had to start from the back. The rear spoiler a little too wide in qualifying, so they're going to go ahead and get that first pit stop out of the way.
Nice work. This car actually qualified in 4th place and then had to start at the back. GT leader is Sylvain Tremblay, and he's got a handy margin over the Racer's Edge Mazda. of Jordan Taylor. James Guay, nice start in the 41. He is hassling for second place already early, and Scott Russell has made up a position as well on Adam Christodoulou. So the 07 Corvette is up to 4th.
Scott Russell may have dropped back here in the last couple of corners because he crossed the stripe in 4th, but I didn't see him there in picture. He may have had an issue going through that horseshoe turn.
Let's have a look at the top of this shot. Yes, you're right, Cal. The orange Mazda of Adam Christodoulou was the next one in frame. So these guys settling into a race rhythm. It's Mazda 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the moment.
One thing these drivers have certainly got to be aware of is what setup do I have on my car? How aggressive have I been with the camber setup on these cars, Dorsey? Through these high banks, it really puts a severe stress on the tires.
And of course, the camber that Calvin's talking about is the angle at which you set the tire out. We'll look at that in a minute, but let's take a look in the meantime at what happened here with the 07. Look at the Corvette on the left up here. Lock up, everybody's going.
Remember, Christodoulou and Russell got into a barber earlier in the season. Scott Russell is not going to be happy with that move.
Anyway, well, let's go back to the camber thing. You lean the tires out on these bankings, and you lean them out in road racing anyway, so when you go through the corner, all of the footprint of the tire sits on the ground. But when it starts to rain, or if it starts to rain, rain tires want to be flat on the ground. So the setup you're talking about, Calvin, and you're absolutely right, will be critical if it gets wet.
Oh, this is a great scrap between. In the red car, the 30 is Jordan Taylor, the 41 is James Guay, and we have just received word that the 68 of Adam Christodoulou for Speed Source will be brought onto pit road for avoidable contact for hitting Scott Russell and turning him around in the East Horseshoe here at Daytona. So we're up, we're running, we're into a race rhythm. Let's see what's going to unfold over the next 2.5 hours. Glad you're with us. Coming to the final chicane, the 5-year drought is finally over. It's the Brumos Porsche, David Donahue and Darren Moore get the victory. It's close though. Oh, he's got it there. Oh, no, they got robbed. But victory for the Motorsport team. There have been so many magical moments in these first 99 races. What's the 100th moment going to give us, the 100th race going to give us here at Daytona? We're going to talk a lot about these first 99 races today, and we're going to talk a lot about Riley because they have been the dominant chassis constructor.
Well, one thing you've learned over the years, Lee, is to wait a little bit long before calling the finish.
Oh, my goodness. Isn't that just the... twice that year too, right?
Well, how strong is Riley, guys? I mean, other than that stat, take a look at the car in the center there. The 61 car is the original first #1 chassis built, still doing service today, still capable of winning today.
Yeah, the 001 chassis originally with Ganassi was purchased by the AIM Motorsport team, and certainly running strong. And the boys running second in points and finished on the podium at the last race.
A surprising statistic in there, and there's not a Crawford in the race, is that Max Crawford's Crawford is the second highest leader in manufacture.
Max was here this weekend, actually. There was a constructor and an owners meeting earlier this week here at Daytona. It was lovely to see Max. I'm not sure if he's still here for the race, but we hope to see the Crawford back at a racetrack very soon.
Yeah, and I think if there's one big disappointment over these last 99 races is that Max is not here on a regular basis. So they're a great family and very competitive, and we wish them to come back soon.
You haven't missed anything while we're away in the break. Ricky Taylor still leads by 1.5 seconds over Memo Rojas. In GT, Christodoulou did serve his drive-through penalty, and we ride with the 44 John Potter in the Magnus Racing Porsche. Brian.
Now, the 44, Lee, is one of those teams that opted for more of a rain setup because they thought the rain was coming. So they did take camber out of the rear. They stood those rear tires up a little bit more so the rain tire would not be punished. But right now, I checked with Craig Stanton, and he said they're not paying a big price for it. The car seems hooked up, and in fact, may actually give them a little better tire wear on the slick. So even though they took a gamble for the rain and it's not here, at least not here yet, it seems to be paying off.
Here are the two Stevenson Motorsports Camaros here. You've got Gunter Schuldak and Andrew Davis together on the road.
Gunter's doing a great job here. Look at that. Andrew takes the position away from it, had a great qualifying run, and he's certainly someone to watch for in the GT ranks. He's really starting to show some speed as he learns the ropes.
They're being very smart. Think about this for a minute. The biggest part of this racetrack is up on the oval. Those are the biggest, widest cars in the entire field. That means they push more air. So drafting one another around here like they're doing right now, as you see a big run going.
John
Potter
Potter
go right
and
around
Charles
the outside.
Espinlau runs high. This is a great run from John Potter.
It really is. He's coming on strong too. And remember, that Porsche got beefed up. A little bit stronger now, the 3.8 litre, and that should certainly show its stuff here on the high banks at Daytona.
And that drafting and slingshot, I mean, there's no rocket science here. I mean, we've been doing it forever, and it works. No question about it. So, I mean, you get those two Camaro boys working together. That can push them up to speed. You know, you see it anytime you watch here at Daytona.
This is the GT Championship co-leader, Emil Asentato for Speed Source.
He got some news this week. He's certainly leading the championship with 2 wins, and he got told, guess what? You're no longer a Pro-Am driver. You're too fast.
You've been achieving a little too much.
You know, I talked to him about that. I wonder if that's a compliment or is that a slapdown?
Back up front, Ricky Taylor. The margin is 1.1 seconds over Memo Rojas. Then John Fogarty, just 0.4 of a second back. He's nice and close to Rojas now. Rojas muscled him out of the way a little earlier, and then Darren Law lined up for a shot, but John has clawed his way back to third, and now within a shot of maybe stealing second away from Memo Rojas. Wilkins has got by Von Moltke, incidentally, and then Buddy Rice. To Chris Neville.
Well, you guys were talking about drivers trying to figure out exactly what they have since yesterday was wet and this morning was dry. After that dry session, we saw lots of changes going on down in pit lane. Daytona is about raw speed, and to make the car go quick here, you want to run it as low as possible. But during that practice session, a lot of teams saw the cars bottoming out in the banking way too much. So they were adding some ride height, adding some spring after that practice session. So those drivers still trying to figure out what they have. Now you might think, hey, we can run the car only 2.5 hours or so bottoming out in the banking, but we have seen bell housings fail in the past because too much bottoming out. So those teams still trying to figure out, do we have a good car for this race? Brian, you also saw some changes too on your end.
Well, I did. We talk about the weather. We've got an east wind, which we have not had for the last day or so. When we were here practicing, that east wind blows down the front straightaway, and it has added a tailwind to these guys. A lot of gear changes going on pit road just before the start of this race. Talked to Mike Shank. The 6 car was on the hard rev limiter for about 6 seconds down the front straightaway. That much of a tailwind. So a lot of gear changes. And you guys talk about drafting in both GT and in Daytona prototypes. The gamble is, did we make the right change on the gears? Will we have enough to draft past the competition?
Well, that's something that the Ganassi team were also working with, was the gearing. I spoke to their engineer this morning. He said, we actually got some advice from Justin Wilson, who ran the 24-hour race with this team, of course, earlier this year, and he suggested some alternate gear ratios for the car to try. And, of course, yesterday morning's practice session was effectively rained out, so they really didn't get to grips with those when they tried them in qualifying. A little too tall with the second gear that they run through the hairpins here. Create a lot of understeer in that car. Also talking to Timmy Keane, he said, yes, we've got 75 pounds more weight on the car, but we have really trimmed this car out. They're taking 5 degrees off of their rear tab. They believe they may see straight line speeds here today approaching 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's amazing. This old racetrack has gotten pretty rough, and we're talking about having to raise the cars up off of the ground to keep them from banging around and hitting those gearboxes and so forth. We can take an onboard ride and take a look at the driver. This is Darren Law, and just watch as he gets onto the rougher parts of the racetrack, how he gets pummeled around in here. Now, that being said, from Daytona's standpoint, this is the last weekend, boys, on this surface.
That's right.
This place will be completely redone. All new asphalt laid down before next year. Track records will fall, no question about that. But look right here, and you can just see how much you're getting beat around. And understand, he's strapped down as tight as you can possibly be, and he'll still bounce around a lot in there.
And the first race on the newly resurfaced Daytona International Speedway will be the Rolex 24 in early 2011. In GT, the 28 Corvette. Veric Lux, who suffered a crash earlier this weekend, which came off the back of a massive crash at Mid-Ohio, where he was turned around and the number 70 Speed Source Mazda collided with him. They've got the 28 Corvette for LG Motorsports back in good shape, and he's having a strong run.
He really is, because bear in mind, this car did not run at the 24-hour race, so these are really effectively the first dry race laps that car has seen. But look at the Camaro. It is handing them. We have to think about 130 pounds were taken off those Camaros right before the last round at Mid-Ohio. They didn't have the best of runs there, but certainly that should have an effect on the long runs here at Daytona.
Let's take you back to a moment ago. What has happened here?
Traffic jams, what's happening here. Watch these two prototypes. Oh, 99's got the big run.
Beautifully timed there by John Fogarty, who read the traffic. Mamo was just a little bit too close to them. They checked up a little bit. Nothing he could do.
Thank you very much. So Fogarty slides from 4th up to 3rd up to 2nd. Ricky Taylor is still your race leader. From Fogarty, Rojas, Law, and Mark Wilkins still in 5th. Von Ice, Borchella Pugh and Mike Forrest in the top 10.
Well, you guys were talking about those Stevenson Camaros yesterday. Engine problems, crank-case pressure. They had to change motors on both of those cars. Listening to the team right now, it sounds like the 97 is having some overheating issues. So Mike Johnson telling the 97, hey, stay out in some clean air. Let's make sure we don't get that thing too hot. With the engine problems we've seen this weekend, we can't stress those motors anymore.
When you see crankcase pressures going up, that's hard to say. When you see that on the gauge on telemetry, that means that some part of the internal part of the engine's failing. Usually it's like a piston, could be a head gasket, but it's starting to pressurize the engine block itself. And when you see those pressures go up, well, you know what? It's over with very shortly thereafter.
You want another shot at it?
Crankcase pressure.
There you go.
I did it good. I knew it. I can spell it.
Saw the clock on the screen there, just over 14 minutes before a driver will see. Driver points today if he pitted. A little bit of a lock up there. That may have been that 97 car down into turn 1.
Good move from Emil Asentado around the outside of John Potter. So another position to the GT points co-leader. Let's take you back and show what went down, heading down into turn 1.
Watch the outside. It's 57, actually, I think, that locked up. It is.
The other one.
Boy, left side, big time, Calvin.
And you've got to release that because that is going to be a long time. We expect this car to run to about the 45-minute mark before stopping.
That's the fight for 4th. This is our overall and Daytona prototype leader, Ricky Taylor, for Wayne Taylor's SunTrust Racing organization. 2 seconds out in front. If you're a regular viewer of our Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series broadcasts, you'll be familiar with this. It's our Watch and Win contest. And with thanks to Pirelli Tyres and Chip Foose and also Dempsey Racing and Mazda, you have a chance to win this car. It's a special Dempsey Racing Edition RX-8 designed by Chip Foose. All you got to do is identify the code word. Hint, hint. Go to the Grand Am website, which is grand-am.com/Foose. Enter that prize word or phrase, and one lucky fan will be selected at each of the races this year. We'll see you at Miller Motorsports Park for the season finale. As we give you the overview of the DP engine analysis, and while you look at those numbers, keep in mind we've got a Ford leading, a Chevrolet leading, a BMW ahead of a Porsche. So there is a very good variety in both the engine department and the chassis department. We're on board here, this nice view from Ricky Taylor's SunTrust Dallara as he goes by the GT class leading car of Sylvain Tremblay, who has just established a very nice lead margin over Jordan Taylor. Brother to the man we're riding with here, who is the youngest winner ever in the Daytona prototype era. Well, it's NASCAR Nationwide Series driver Colin Brown. He won here at the World Center of Racing when he was 17 years and 9 months with Jörg Bergmeister.
Well, look at this. John Fogarty is really closing in on Ricky Taylor right here. Ricky got booked a little bit in traffic there, not badly, but John Fogarty certainly has the hammer down. His previous laps have been a couple of 3/10 faster than Ricky, and he has really hooked up there through that very important bus stop chicane. That gives you the shot onto this straightaway, Doss.
I wonder if that car, it took this long for it to come in, because all of a sudden this car has really come on. The 99 is really the quickest car out there right now, and it's showing.
Wow, he is hauling him in. He's reeling him in. Look at John Fogarty go in that 99. Ricky Taylor, for the first time in this race, is under a little bit of pressure.
Remember last year, these two cars went at it in the closing laps. It was Gurney up against Angelelli, but that Dallara seemed to have less drag around these banking turns, and that was where the advantage was ultimately for the victory. While we watch and enjoy this, let's go to pit lane with Chris Neville and let's hear from the championship leader.
And Scott Pruitt has had his eye on timing and scoring. And Scott, it looks like Memo Rojas' pace is about half a second off the leaders. Is that the 75 pounds, or are you guys just trying to cruise and take care of the car right now?
No, the weight definitely affected the car I had out this morning. It's more difficult getting into the turns, more difficult accelerating off, just that extra weight out of my family at home. And, you know, we're just struggling with it. I mean, it is what it is. We can't run with a 10 and a 99 right now, but we're going to get whatever we can and see if we can get this penalty resolved after this race.
If you have to carry that weight for the rest of the season, which tracks are going to hurt you most?
We're not carrying the weight for the rest of the season.
And we have got our first full course yellow debris on the racetrack. And while we were listening to Scott Pruitt's remarks there, did you see Ricky Taylor lose the car in the hairpin? Got sideways, caught it. Fogarty came back. It was on.
I said at the beginning, that's the slipperyest corner. He came too much speed in the middle of that corner. He lost grip, got out into the dirty part of the racetrack. That's all it took for Fogarty to get by, but it wasn't over, and it's still not over. This debris, we saw it, or actually you saw it, Calvin, a big chunk of rubber, I think it was, out in the middle, right in the racing line.
Yeah, you could see it as the two guys went side by side through the infield section. We're looking at 22 minutes on the clock before they have to make that mandatory stop. But most importantly, we're only 22 and a half minutes in, which means if they do a pit stop and take advantage of this caution, it would not be good for championship points. So that driver would be staying in the car, and that changes the whole strategy.
There's your debris. It's a piece of an exhaust pipe. It was not what I was looking at, what you were looking at. It's the tailpipe off of, I think, a Mazda. That's the last part of it as it goes out the back.
Heading towards the kink there, and that's in a nasty spot. If someone were to make contact of that, and all that was going on while there was a thrilling battle between this man here, Ricky Taylor, and two-time champion John Fogarty for the lead, and Ricky was able to wrestle it back.
He did a great job withstanding the pressure, and he has just done an awesome job this year. Imagine the weight on this young man's shoulders in terms of driving not only for a top team, but his dad's team, and that's what makes it really special when he grabbed the pole here, their home race. They live just a few miles away, down south here towards Orlando, and certainly SunTrust's hometown as well. So this is great stuff for that team, and particularly for young Ricky Taylor.
Let's show you what happened to Ricky Taylor and how John Fogarty was on the spot, on cue to take advantage of it.
Just watch right here. A little too much speed in the middle. He can't get the car to turn down. Back end kicks out when it got in the dirty area. And all it took for John was just to move inside and ramp it up.
I'll tell you what Ricky Taylor has right now within the paddock area is respect. John Fogarty recognized he couldn't just rough him up and intimidate him. He realizes here we sit side by side on board the 10 car. That debris is going to be just off to the right side of these two cars there as they approach the kink.
That's amazing because both those guys concentrating on side-by-side racing, they both saw that exhaust piece out there and split it.
And there's been a common phrase being used in the paddock, and that is, the kid's doing a good job.
Yeah.
And they're talking about 20-year-old Ricky Taylor.
Well, I teased Wayne yesterday, said you're the only slow Taylor in the paddock now, man.
I also said that piece looked like it was off a Mazda, and that's a little bit guessing on my part. I should have probably said that. They used a little exhaust chip like that, but it doesn't have to be off a Mazda.
They're loud enough already.
Yeah, they are loud enough already.
Let's tell you about the Sunoco Driver Challenge because it involves this racetrack right here, Daytona International Speedway. The Sunoco Driver Challenge, you've heard us mention it before, it involves 4 championships from the UK, and whoever can amass the highest average point score we will see at the 2011 Rolex 24. Last year was the inaugural year. This is a really nice competition. It gives them a little extra motivation, doesn't it?
It does. Derek Johnston came over and won that award and ran with the Doran team last year, or earlier this year, should I say, and John-Eric Verne is still dominating things, as you can see, 98.13. That's an average score. You get 100 for a victory over there, so he has really been on top of his game. And Ollie Webb, who's up there leading the standings, has dropped to 5th. Both of those guys running in the British F3 Championship.
All right, pits open and DPs, as per usual, come in first. A reminder about next year's Rolex 24, but let's get back to the business at hand. Who's going to be best on pit road, Chris?
Well, Memo Rojas hits his box first. I saw way down there that the tire, it looks like they're going to do a tire change. I'm down at the 10 car right now, just going to be fuel on this car, doing tires on the 99. Listening to Ricky Taylor on the radio, he said he has a bit of a vibration, but he only thinks it's a wheel weight. And he said the car is a little bit loose off the corner, but no tires on the 10 car. Brian, what do you have?
59 Brumos entry is in. This is the only team in the paddock that has run every race in Daytona prototype competition. Tires and fuel, and they're gone, guys.
Whoa, that was wild. And they stay as they came in. The 10, the 99, the 01. However, there's a swap at the 61.
Look at the nose on Wilkins' car. The 61 may have had an issue getting out of his pit box. We'll have to try and find that. But right now you can see the nose is totally askew. This is going to be devastating. They'll need to hit pit lane again.
Oh, he's giving a push. There's your trouble right there.
There's the culprit, you would have to say.
And it flies.
Maybe Rojas roughed him up a little bit. You can see the stickers on the 61 car, so they took tires also.
Yeah, there's no question there was a little animosity there between those two, so we didn't see it on the first go-round, but there was definitely contact, I'm telling you, between those two boys.
And keep in mind, they're the top 2 cars in the Daytona Prototype Championship. This is a nightmare for the 61 AIM Autosport Ford.
Well, the good news is it didn't do any other damage, it doesn't look like.
Well, guys, just listening to the scanner on the 01 team, they noticed that there was that contact between the 61 car. I heard the spotter up on the grandstand, also the team talking to Mamo, checking out the car, telling him everything looks okay on the outside. Mamo saying that the car feels good on the inside, so it doesn't look like there's going to be any issue with the Telmex car.
Trouble here, though.
There's a huge issue because I don't understand this. It looked like Mark literally ran into the back of Rojas here, and what he's done now is punctured that radiator. You see the steam. And this is not good news because they could have recovered from this. If this yellow goes on long enough, they may have been able to get Mark out of the car, suffice the 30-minute rule. But he ran into Rojas again.
Watch at the very top of the picture, you'll see right here. Wow, it's just...
Oh, and there you see Rojas come over a little bit, back into the slower lane. You're supposed to blend. Mark Raffoff in the drivers' meeting this morning told all of the drivers 45 miles an hour in the fast lane, the right-hand lane, and then if you're behind, you have to blend in. But it definitely looked as though Rojas went a little bit left as they were going side by side here. Let's watch. And right there,
yeah,
you see
moved.
that? He
Just
crossed over that white line. I think Mark was very frustrated by that. Tapped him coming out of pit lane, but then hit him again.
GT stops and LG Corvette is in, Brian.
28 is in. Kelly Collins is going to be taking it over. This car, Eric Lux, had a problem in qualifying yesterday. Spun into the guardrail. Significant damage as he was trying to dodge one of the TRG Porsches out there on the wet and slippery racetrack. The car's back together. They think they've got a good car for the race today. Collins climbing in. Chris?
We can see lots of damage up at the front end of the 61 here. They're going to have to change this front splitter. They're going to have to change the radiator. This is going to be a long change for these guys. You know, they just made up so much ground with that points penalty on the 01 car. But this is a real tough break for this team. Also, listening to Rojas, he's telling that team how hard the 61 hit the back end of that car. So they're really trying to take a look at the gearbox and make sure that there's no damage to the exhaust system or the gearbox on that car. But that team continuing to tell Rojas, just be calm, everything looks good, don't worry about it.
That's a self-inflicted wound. I hate to say it, but I mean that all that damage was done by the pushing on the back of the 01, which didn't really have to happen.
Once the nose is gone, I mean, the radiator is so vulnerable at the front end of these cars, as you can see right there, and it's completely bent it, immediately punctured it. He's got splitter damage too. That was not from the initial impact on pit road, I don't believe.
Always think about the championship implications here. This team's second. They only had a 3-point buffer over Ryan Dial and only a 5-point buffer over the 10, the SunTrust team. That's massive.
Didn't have to happen that way.
All right, as per usual, when we're under caution, we'll make the most of this. We'll go to a break so we can show you as much green flag racing as we can. You're watching the 100th Daytona prototype race for Grand Am. Far from done with this round of the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series, but we want to give you a heads up. The next round, we head to New Jersey and New Jersey Motorsports Park. We will be live for you Sunday, July 18 at 1 p.m. Eastern. The Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series right here on Speed. And it would not be Grand Am without a little controversy. We show you the replay again of Mamo Rojas leaving his pit box. There's Mark Wilkins, and there's contact, the first point of contact there. Watch this.
That's Mark Wilkins losing his temper and losing his cool, and it's not something this young man normally does. That wasn't really the first time he did it. He gave him a shot at his pit out, too. Back to green racing, though.
And it's the number 6 of Brian Frizzell for Mike Shank Racing. Remember, this 6 car stopped very early. You heard Chris Neville do the report, say this is strategic. It's going to get them out of the traffic because they were sent to the back of the field for a post-qualifying tech infraction. The rear wing was a little too wide. And now they have beautiful track position, and if there were to be another yellow, these guys are back in the game nicely.
And how that happened, the wing being too short, or too wide, I should say, is that they'd never run this bodywork all year long, and they went to a low downforce setup. So they changed out the pieces in the aerodynamic bits, including the wing, and they'd never tested or run with it before, and they didn't run it through tech. And, well, guess what? A little too wide.
We've got 2 Delaras running up front right now. Look at Rojas. He looks to the inside of Fogarty. Takes third spot away.
John switches back, though. Good work in the 99.
Yeah, that's a classic double pass right there. No question about it. Memo got in there, got the capacity, but had too much speed to hold the car down, opened up the inside.
Think about what happened at Lime Rock when Fogarty took Rojas off the road, exiting turn 2 at Lime Rock. He's been on a 2-race probation. That's now out of the way.
Can he get it back?
Gloves off. Championship back on, gloves off. And we've got 2 Dellaras, followed by a string of Rileys. And the 9 car is placed well. Terry Borchella, the inaugural Daytona prototype champion, running nicely in the top 5 or 6 places. You're on board with Ricky Taylor, looking at Brian Frizzell, the man who won here a year ago for the SunTrust Racing team.
And here comes the Red Dragon tucked up in the draft. I don't know if he's going to have anywhere to go with that speed.
Let's talk more about the 6 with Brian.
I was listening to Michael Valiente and Brian Frizzell talk earlier with their engineers before the race started. While the 6 is good, it is a little nervous under brakes. It was something that they could not dial out. They didn't have a lot of dry time, as you guys have talked about. Under heavy braking, Michael Valiente was saying the rear end dances around a lot. You got to get off the brakes before turn in, otherwise the car very loose. So while this car is fast, it's probably not 100% to their liking right now.
Remember, the top 2 cars on the field right now did not take tires. Of course, the 6 car stopped on the first lap. The 10 team decided not to put tires on Ricky Taylor, maintain track position. Fogarty does have fresh rubber. He looks to the outside.
And we are, as you know, well, there's going to be a little rub here. Oh, big rub, and he's gone. Oh.
Yep, there's the contact.
Ricky Taylor into the wall.
That's a shame because there was enough racing room there, Dorsey.
Yep.
Didn't have to happen.
And there is the team principal, Wayne Taylor, saying, what has gone on there? What was that all about?
Tell you where he's going. He's gone down the 99 pit right now. Wayne Taylor takes off his headset. He is very frustrated. This is a big day for this team, championship and otherwise.
Well, both drivers know that there's no room out there to do that, so you can't just say, it's a racing issue.
But Ricky had nowhere to go.
No, he was on the outside.
And look at that. Not happy. 2 team principals talking, Bob Stallings and Wayne Taylor. It was set to be such a super day for the SunTrust team. Now, what may happen to this car, to the 99? Will that be deemed avoidable contact?
This is how it all started.
Goes to the inside. Remember, Ricky's on older tires, so he doesn't have the grip. John slices back to the inside. Ricky's putting the power down, and he just touched him enough. Right in that critical point, the car's still loaded, Dorsey. He lost it one way, snapped around the other way.
There's the answer to the question. The 99 serving a stop-and-go penalty.
He stalls.
We'll look at it.
Momentarily stalls it.
Yeah.
And remember, that 99 has had problems refiring this year.
Well, that is so late off the corner right there. I mean, both corners.
That was the view from Darren Law. Here's a head-on angle.
That's a bump that loosened him right there.
Yeah. There's no way you're going to catch that one.
Nope.
Now, how much damage is done to the back right corner of that Dallara? That was a pretty nasty slap up against the Armco.
It is, and think about the high speeds around this banking with problems with one of your rear corners of the car.
Gets a switchback done, but just didn't leave him enough room.
Chris is at the SunTrust camp. What does it look like, Chris?
Well, we're taking a look at that right rear corner where it looks like most of the damage is. I was listening to Ricky Taylor, and he said it seemed like something might be broken in the suspension. It looks like they're going to pull the rear deck off the car right now, so I'm thinking that there's probably more damage than what we're seeing just on the bodywork right now, and that means a longer pit stop. Ricky Taylor did get out of the car. Max Angelelli getting behind the wheel, so we'll take a look, see if we've got anything we can see back here. Yeah, guys, I can't see anything right now, but I'm going to let these guys work, and we'll see if we can get some more information.
Yep. Well, what happens here, Dawson, Cal, is that all of the competitors, all of the challengers to Ganassi in the championship are letting them off the hook.
Absolutely. They are. You talk about Wilkins getting involved with Rojas, and now the 10 car. I mean, these are the guys who are suddenly within striking distance of this car in the championship point standings, and they're throwing it all away here today.
It's unbelievable because these were things that did not need to happen. Most certainly didn't need to happen at the beginning of a race. We're not even close to being able to win this race to be doing things like that. And look at Wayne Taylor.
With Ricky,
and, it wasn't Ricky's fault.
And so the reshuffled order is Brian Frizzell at the front ahead of the 01 Telmex machine, Max Angelelli.
The 99, in the meantime, while it was doing its stop and go, left the pit lane with too much speed, so now it will be going back again. And you're right. They're just letting this 01 run away with the championship.
Well, he's running away too. You know that Scott Pruitt is a good friend of Speed Channels. He's worked with us before on many occasions, and we know him quite well away from the business as well. I think we can say, Scott, we're not buying what you told us a little earlier about the 01's inability to run with the 10 or the 99 or anyone else, because this car is looking pretty good at the moment. We'll follow that story, but there's a bigger one right now. Chris?
Well, guys, I finally got a look at the right rear suspension on the car. A couple components back there were bent, but it didn't look like any major damage. So while they're going to get it fixed, they're going to drop a couple laps. Ricky Taylor now out of the car. Ricky, you were so quick out there, but what happened with the 99?
Yeah, he was really strong on the brakes, and our SunTrust car was running really well. I was just trying to save the car, give it to Max in a decent position so he could bring it home for a good result. Just a shame here for SunTrust. I saw him go around the outside and try to switch back coming on the inside, and I thought I gave him enough room, and I just felt a tap in the right rear, and I guess that was it.
Obviously, Ricky Taylor very disappointed. Also, Wayne Taylor putting your head down. Wayne, we saw you go over and have some words with Bob Stallings. What happened there?
Well, the 99 car took him out, and I went to ask Bob, and Bob said that he apologized and said that it was his mistake. So it's a shame, given that where the championship was. It's unnecessary, you know.
How much time is it going to take to fix the SunTrust car?
Well, it doesn't matter. You know, they're going to fix it. I mean, we're going to be laps down. It's not going to do anything for us from a point standpoint. It's really disappointing.
Tough break for the boys at SunTrust.
Yeah, let's take you back for those of you just turning on. This is what we're talking about. Battling for second place, John Fogarty in the red 99, the Chevrolet-powered Riley, trying to put a move on the SunTrust Dallara of Ricky Taylor.
You see it just traded some body work there coming off, and then right at that critical point where the car's fully loaded, full acceleration, just gets into him a second time, enough to turn Ricky around. Remember, Fogarty and the guys behind Ricky Taylor on much fresher rubber, had a little bit more grip at that stage of the game.
And the point really is that we're only 21 laps into a 2.5-hour race, that you don't have to race that hard right now.
And the closest challengers to the 01 in the championship, this one is the closest, 61, is down in 30th position, and the 10, the next closest, this one, is in 27th. They are letting the 01 off the hook. It could be a good day for Ryan Dial to capitalize on that, but the 8 Starworks machine is down in 9th place, some 51 seconds back. Frizzell, he leads, but he's been out there a lot longer than the others. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. A reminder about NASCAR Race Day, built by the Home Depot here at Daytona International Speedway. Last night's nationwide race winner, Dale Jr., Ryan Newman won. Pablo Montoya and Jamie McMurray will join the boys, John Robertson, the gang, live. It's NASCAR Race Day, built by the Home Depot, today at 4:30 Eastern, right here on Speed. We welcome you back. You're watching the Brumos Porsche 250, and we're celebrating the 100th race for Daytona Prototypes, and we've got just everything that you would expect, the normal controversy and collisions in Daytona Prototype Grand Am racing. And look how it affects the points. What's going on with the AIM Autosport team and the SunTrust Racing team? From a 7-point advantage, the Ganassi boys would blow it out to a 20-point margin if positions were to stay as is. But it's a little bit early, really, to get into that, because we've got a long way to go, an hour and 3/4 still left in this race. GT points as of now would look like this. 3 points the margin between the two Speed Source cars, the 69 over the 70, and Andy Lally still very much in the mix.
He is, and you look down in 5th spot, Andrew Davis and Rob Liddell, they now lead this race, and I have to say that team, before some strategy magic there, they waited for the wave by, so Rob Liddell and the 97 car also pitted a lap later than all of the other GT cars, and that got them to the front of this pack.
I need to follow up on a storyline when we went to the break. Look at these guys running nice and close. The 69 and the 40. 2 Mazda RX-8, one from Speed Source, the other one from Dempsey Racing. We give a shout out to Patrick Dempsey, who is not here aboard his number 40, still busy shooting a movie.
Playing movie star again?
He is, yeah. He's forgetting what his real responsibilities are as a race driver. Hey, I need to follow up on that story about Brian Frizzell. We said he was out there a lot longer. 13 laps longer out in front, as opposed to Memo Rojas, the likes of Darren Law, Buddy Rice. So he'll need a yellow to fall soon if he's going to stay in this thing.
Well, he'll need a yellow to fall soon if he's going to maintain the lead. But I tell you what, both of these cars are going to need, he's going to need 2 stops here to get to the finish. So we're going to have to wait and see how this strategy plays out. So I think that the other cars will too by when they pitted. It's going to be tight.
Calvin mentioned about strategical magic from Mike Johnson and the Stevenson Group. Robin Liddell leads GT over the Turner Motorsport BMW of Billy Alderman, and Andy Lally for TRG, the first of the Porsches, in third. But let's talk more about Oberlin and Turner Motorsport with Chris Neville.
Yeah, just listening to Bill Oberlin on the radio. He's in that car making some tuning changes with the sway bars, but it looks like that BMW looking strong after that come-away victory at Mid-Ohio just 2 weeks ago. The one thing they can't change is the heat in that car. Once again, over 150 degrees in there. And Will Turner doing something a little bit interesting this weekend. He decided to fold up 2 raw hamburgers, put them in the car during the race, and see if they're actually cooked by the end of the race. Brian?
Down here in the 07 camp right now, Paul Edwards that's in the car. They have fired it back up, and I heard Tony Dow on the box say, we've got to go out and do 1 lap so we'll know about Homestead. That is a tire test that's coming up, but the problem with the 07, an over-rev, a mechanical over-rev. The transmission went from 4th to 2nd and mechanically over-rev the engine, so they think they've got a broken valve spring. This lap is just a test to see, indeed, if that's the problem. The 44 is right next door. We talked about how hard the Magnus Racing team had worked, and they did some magic on a pit stop as well, leaving several people on that last pit stop. But now a broken axle has set them back. They're replacing that on pit lane, and that will set them well back in this race, guys.
Well, look at this. The one-time race leader in GT and the pole-sitting number 70 Mazda. Drama on the right rear.
Shredded tire is going to do a lot of damage to that bodywork. Luckily, it must have happened somewhere near pit lane, because now he is on pit lane.
Tragedy for this car at the last round. Sylvain got taken out, but what it did, it split he and Jonathan Bomarito in the points. Sylvain got points that day. Jonathan did not. There's no way he's going to make that up on his team owner and co-driver, of course.
Kind of looking for tire marks on the side. When we saw that camera shot, the two were running pretty close, but I don't think that's it. Chris?
A tough break for the 70 guys. Listening to Sylvain Tremblay the first part of this race, he was very happy with the car. He was making some changes in there and saying, hey, I can get this thing loose. I can get this thing to understeer. So we have a great car today. Haven't heard any reason on why that right foot may have gone down. And taking a look at the bodywork, it didn't look like there was any damage back there. So it looks like this tire may have just let go.
Let's show you what happened. Remember, this is the car that was heavily damaged at Mid-Ohio after a collision. Whoa!
Good save.
Really good save. Unbelievably good save. That is a complete massive decompression of the air. Usually that is a low tire first. It builds extreme temperature and pressure and blows out. Unbelievable good save on that one.
Remember, we have seen some action around this racetrack today. We've had a couple of cleanups for the debris, but still could be out there. That could have caused a cut-down tire, but about 150 miles an hour. That gets the driver's attention, as you can see the big wobble.
I wonder if Sylvain didn't feel something, because, I mean, normally you don't save one of those when they deflate like that. And I wonder if he didn't feel some little wiggle or something that set him off.
Once again, the theme of the championship challenges falling. It continues, because this car, this driver, Sylvain Tremblay, second in the GT Championship points and challenging the sister car 69. Now it falls back down the order. Now running 24th overall and well outside the top 10 in class. And remember, that team had to work so hard to repair that number 70 after Mid-Ohio, the crash with Eric Lux.
On board with DL here. He's currently running in 8th spot, but really he's going to make up a lot of points on the guys right around him, but he's still falling further behind. The 01 are having another strong day despite that weight penalty of 75 pounds. The 01 again looks strong here today at Daytona.
Former race leading car and getting a lap back, Max Angelelli in the 10 SunTrust Dallara, goes by the lead Dallara of Brian Frizzell.
And Max will not be happy whatsoever about his young protege being roughed up the way he was.
Super run from these guys being Brumos Racing. Darren Law and David Donahue, they tested last Tuesday in Savannah. It was a very productive day, not only for the 59, but also for the Action Express number 9. Pounded round, made some changes, not necessarily for here, because in their opinion and their feeling, they've got this place dialed in, and so they rightly have. They've won the last 2 Rolex 24s, both those organisations.
And Roebling Road is a very unique racetrack. It's very abrasive. It has a lot of grip. So sometimes you come away from that racetrack thinking, boy, this thing is hooked up. You take it to another place like, wow, what happened?
They'll apply those elements they learnt from the test at the next round at New Jersey Motorsports Park. Brian, what do you have?
Well, you talk about them being dialed into Daytona. I talked to Darren Law earlier and said, how much does your setup change from January to July? Massive temperature differences, both ambient and track-wise. And he said, amazingly enough, we're so good here, it's very, very minor changes, even on a day like today when the air is what we call heavy, because it's very humid, and that affects the aerodynamics on the car. He said the changes are minimal. They've got the book on this place, and they love it, guys.
Yep, they certainly do, and a good, strong run. How costly was that collision and then the speeding on pit lane for the 99? John Fogarty is buried in 10th. Look at Rojas on Frizzell, though.
Oh! Problem. I didn't see any contact there.
That was very strange.
Very weird indeed. I didn't think they got into each other, but suddenly Brian Frizzell had a big moment there in the middle of turn 1. Normally, if you're going to lose the car, Dorsey, it's a lot earlier in the turn-in point.
It looked like it just lost massive grip all at once, like a mismatched downshift or something.
Broke a half shaft or something?
Something weird there.
Chris, what can you tell us?
Well, obviously, what's happened with the 10 and the 61, this team trying to be playing it very conservative. As soon as they saw that on the television screen, they said, Mamo, did you get into him? But we heard Brad Parrott, who's spotting up in the stand, say, hey, guys, don't worry. Mamo did not get into that car.
Do you think he could have broke a half shaft?
Well, that's what it looked like.
One way?
It looked like either mismatched the downshift or he broke a drive shaft. The car just lurched.
Let's show you what happened down in turn 1 to Brian Frizzell. Watch car 6.
Oh, it just got into a big four-wheel slide.
And then corrected it.
And it bit. Well, that's just very...
That is strange. That is really bizarre.
And guess what? The championship leading car, the one that was heavily penalised, the one in the spotlight, is back in the lead where it has been all season long. Speed's coverage of the Rolex Sports Car Series is brought to you by Burger King, who remind you to have it your way. And by the all-wheel drive 2010 Subaru WRX. We are back at Daytona. We're under our second full course caution. I'll tell you why in just a moment. But another reminder about the Pirelli Tire Chip Boost Dempsey Racing Edition Mazda RX-8 giveaway. Simply identify the code word or code phrase. We're going to show it to you several times today. Go to the Grand Am website, which is grand-am.com/boost. Enter the prize word to have a chance at winning. And all 11 winners will be at the 12th and final round as guests of Pirelli, Grand Am, Mazda and Dempsey Racing, the season finale at Miller Motorsports Park. You could win that car. That tells the story. Debris on the racetrack at various positions. And we are under that second full course caution. Both of them, boys, have been for debris.
Yeah, I tell you what, this car just got a big break because Brian Frizzell had hit pit lane. He'd actually shot through that bus stop chicane. Seemed like the car was either losing grip or has an issue. They are on pit lane. They'd made the commitment when we went full caution. And normally pit lane is closed, but because he was already in there, they caught a bit of a break. Let's take a look here. This is Brian Frizzell going underneath Tracy Crone. Look at the wiggle in the rear end again. Similar to what happened to him in turn 1, so... According to the team, there's nothing wrong. Well, Brian hasn't reported anything wrong, but he's certainly struggling for grip in the rear end of the car, Dorsey.
I've got to think the rear tires on that car had to either have blisters or something really irregular going on back there, because you never see a car just lurch sideways like that at that angle. I mean, he's doing a great job of catching it, but
look how close he was to catching a real break. You see 2 cars in front of him, so he's still 1 lap down. I thought he was going to beat those cars out of pit lane. Didn't quite make it, but if they pit, he would then assume... the position behind the pace car and should get a wave by.
I'd take the 1 lap down on new tires, please.
This is the man who was closest. That was the man, Ryan Dial, closest to challenging the Ganassi squad at the top of the championship. We ride aboard the 44 Magnus Porsche with Craig Stanton after a prolonged period off the racetrack.
We've shown a lot of speed. Had that pole at the Glen, been running very strong. Good. They obviously made their debut here at Daytona at the 24-hour race early this season. And once they got that bigger Porsche motor, it suddenly seemed to equalize the playing field a little bit and made that car a factor again.
There's Charles Espenlaub, once again subbing for Patrick Dempsey at Dempsey Racing. You can see on his helmet there it says, share a little sunshine. And what that is, it's a statewide grassroots tourism campaign that encourages all Floridians to send a personal email to out-of-state friends and family inviting them to visit the Sunshine State.
could see his eyes there. He's really twitching his eyes like he's maybe getting sweat and salt into his eyes there, and put his hand out of the window there trying to scoop a little bit of air. And these cockpit temperatures with an hour or so on the board really get very, very extreme, particularly with that Mazda that runs huge exhaust to try and dampen that noise, and it really overheats the cockpit temps.
Well, you get that sweat in the brow, and then it drips into your eyeball, and you can't, you really just, there's no way you can wipe it.
I saw you sweating when you walked up to our air-conditioned booth today, Bruce.
Well, I had to get on the elevator.
Here's Emil Asentato, the co-championship leader in GT, and here is the man doing all the chasing. Darren Law has been hounding Memo Rojas for the lead of this motor race. Both those top two cars are in. Chris, take it away.
Well, Tim Keane on the radio reminding all these crew members and these drivers exactly where they are with the problems with the 10 car and the 61, telling them, guys, just hit your marks, take your time. Nobody get over that wall first, and make sure that Scott Pruitt doesn't jump over the wall first. Him saying, hey, he's one of the worst offenders of that, so let's keep our hand on him. The team saying it'd be about a 17-second stop for fuel and tires. It was exactly that, but Scott Pruitt stalling the car, hitting off pit lane. Ryan?
59, the Brumos entry is in. Darren Law out of the car. David Donahue in. Problems with the right front. They lowered the car too soon. And as they head out of pit, it's close, but the 01 gets back by.
Yeah, that cost them there, Brian. I think they would have leapfrogged around the 01 with that stall that Pruitt had.
Good fight going on here between Ryan Dial. Oh, and the 9, the Action Express Porsche has stopped.
Oh, they forgot to put the wicker bill in the top. You see him putting in the gurney flap on top of the wing.
Obviously done a downforce change, and the driver left without. He'd have really felt the difference then.
That was bad before. Try this.
Look at the little clip there on the left side. Didn't look like it was down.
Trouble on the 99. Not starting.
This car struggle with the refiring. Remember, the first time they ran this motor at Lime Rock had a problem when Gurney was trying to refire the motor. It cost him precious seconds there.
This is catastrophic. Get it going, though.
One knock after another today for the Gainscope Bob Stallings machine. That has been the story for them. That was a front-running car earlier in this race on pit stop rotation. Buddy Rice, in the spirit of Daytona Coyote, goes to the top of the tree. The order will shuffle somewhat, and then we'll go back racing.
I think it makes sense for the 90 car. They didn't have great track position. They're rolling the dice here a little bit. 1 hour, 27 minutes to go, and here we see how close it was with Pruitt. Oh, look at that. Tell you, those fences there on the rear bodywork, they will slice one of those tires in a heartbeat. You have to be so careful.
Pruitt's all the way up to the white line. I don't know where he's supposed to go.
Brian, tell us more.
Brian Frizzell climbed out of the number 6. He's sitting down here. He's got his cool suit plugged into a little auxiliary unit, so he's cool. But Brian, not cool there in the car the last couple of laps. What happened? Did the tires just go away?
Yeah, the tires were falling off big. I had a lot of pressure from Rojas early on, and then his tires fell off a bit. But it was just a really tough situation. Just no grip going in, a lot really loose on braking, and then a lot of understeer in the mid-corner. So tough stint. Apologize to the Shank team. I want to thank Rocky Fork Landscaping for being on board this week and helping the team out.
Well, I know you guys worked really hard to get this car ready for Mid-Ohio, and then you bring it here. You won in a Dallara last year. How much does that experience that both you and Michael have in a Dallara, how much does that pay dividends?
I think it pays a lot because we know what a good Dallara is supposed to feel like. So when it's out of the window or something doesn't feel right, we know it. And it's, the team's just doing an excellent job. And second race, first time here at Daytona, everyone's got a million laps around here in their cars, and they're just doing an excellent job.
They are doing an excellent job. They'll see if they can get the 6 to the front, Chris.
Robin Liddell is in, also the 94. It looks like Bill Auberlin's going to get out, and Joey Ham's going to get behind the wheel. Listening to these teams, they're telling their drivers, hey, guys, even though it's a cloudy day, it is hot and it is humid. So they're reminding their drivers, you guys got to be drinking because we still have a long ways to go in this race, doing fuel and tires on the 57. And like I said, the 94, too, doing fuel, tires, and a driver back there. And it looked like Andy Lally may have come in, too. I don't know. What have you got, Brian?
I see the 66 down on pit road, just stepped back over the wall. Looks like a routine stop, tires going on, and Andy Lally will head back out. Very pleased with RJ Valentine this weekend. He's running a great pace, and remember, Valentine and Lally, they shared the victory here at the Rolex 24 a couple of years ago, Chris.
Problem down on the 57 and 97. Problem closing the right rear door on the 57, and a wheel was out in front of the 97. As that car left pit lane, it hit that wheel. So things got a little bit crazy down here, and the 94 leapfrogged both.
Yeah, that was an eventful pit stop for the Stevenson group. Certainly there was a problem with the 57 door. Mike Johnson had been in there. There we see the wheel that got hit by the 97 car. But the reason this pit stop was so slow, when they slammed the door, it looked like something had come adrift. The mechanics had to go back to that twice. And that led many cars in the GT class to leapfrog around Robin Liddell.
And the 97 gets a stop and go plus 60 seconds for that pit lane infringement. One of the many excellent Grand Am pit lane officials gathering that loose wheel back up. Joe Foster's aboard his Mazda, and we'll be back. Back at the Brumos Porsche 250 round 8 of this year's Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series, and the 04 Indy 500 champ Buddy Rice leads the way, but Nelson Philippe off track, and Buddy spun. The race leader has been turned around, facing traffic.
Wow, that was a wild 100 meters right there. We saw Nelson Philippe get wide. Did Buddy Rice get some help there, Dorsey?
Boy, you would assume so, but I don't know. We'll have to look at it again. But
And the sleeper in the pack has been the 60, Mike Shankford of Oz Negri. He assumes the race lead. While we're away in the break, the 59 was forced to come in for an additional stop.
We talked about having a little bit of problem on that stop. I looked like they were doing something on the right front. Well, I think the right front wheel nut was not tight, because I saw the mechanic go back over there and retighten the right front. I didn't see anything else done.
Let's show you what happened again on this first lap of the restart with Buddy Rice, who I mentioned was in the lead of the motor race. Check it out.
He's all by himself there, so he's got wide. He's on the marbles. He's off. Philippe may have been distracted there. He's off in the dirt as well, and Buddy can't keep it together and spins as he gets right down into the brake zone.
So lucky in that brake zone not to be collected. This will show us better.
And that was just marbles and tyres not up to temperature. Both guys got caught out by that.
Oh, good save there by, what is it, the 77?
Yeah. Oh, and the big hit there between the 75 and the 01. Pruitt got clobbered there by Nick Johnson. That was a big bump.
So the revised order is Oz Negri, Ryan Dial, Mamo Gidley, Nick Johnson, Scott Pruitt, Joao Barbosa. What a shuffle up. And car number 8, as we mentioned, it's in the championship chase. Ryan Dial had that little bit of a scuff with Scott Pruitt exiting pit road a little earlier. Now he's in fine shape, in good shape, and what have we got? Like the top 7 cars are all on the same pit stop rotation. So this is game on. It's a fair fight.
It really is. It's fascinating stuff. There we see the 10 car up ahead, but Ryan Dial, with that BMW power, is going to hound Oz Negri. Negri had a brilliant recovery drive at Mid-Ohio to get on the podium, the second step of the podium. And now we see the 90 in pit lane with fresh rubber going on the car. Chris?
Yeah, fresh rubber going on Buddy Rice's car. No driver change here, so Antonio Garcia not going to get behind the wheel, pulling a lot of grass out of the front end of the car. Also listening to Scott Pruitt and Tim Keene on the radio. Tim Keene talking to Brad Parrott up on the roof, and both of them telling Scott Pruitt that everything looks good with the Telmex car, so no issue there. Brian?
Darren Law just climbed out of the 59. Darren looks a little warm out there, I'd say. Probably warm in that car, but you had a great run on the pit stop. What was the problem?
The problem was they dropped the car before it was fully tightened, the right front wheel, and so the wheel didn't get tightened. You had to come in and lock it back up. So it's so disappointing. We have a bunch of people from Brumos here, 400 guests.
400 Brumos Boosters Brigade, I think is what it's called, and they're on the back straightaway in 10 different suites. But we talked about time left in this race. Can you get it done? And you said you need a yellow. Can you do it without a yellow? Can you do it with one?
We're gonna, because of the space lost on track with the wheel, we're gonna need a yellow for sure to make the gap back up. But it's a podium car for sure.
Podium car for sure. They want to see if they can get back not just to the podium but to the top. Lee.
Yeah, I think looking with an hour 20 to go, that's outside everyone's fuel window, Brian. So I think everyone's going to need quite a bit of caution here to not need more fuel today. But certainly they need a caution to close that gap with traffic.
While we're in the 2-box format, you may have noticed a move for the lead. Ryan Dial got by Oz Negri. This is what caused the mayhem. Buddy Rice running wide and spinning into the face of traffic.
But watch further back in the pack. You'll see here, you see the 77 car go down on the grass. Look at Pruitt just trying to stay out of the action. But look at the 75. Nick Johnson gets sideways and clobbers that right rear corner of Scott Pruitt.
On board with Angelelli. There goes Rice. There goes Philippe.
Boy, all 3 of those cars lost grip. And look at the wreck behind going on. That was a stack up because nobody knew really what was going on there.
Right.
Suddenly, Nick Johnson just got very loose on the brakes. Pruitt was trying to stay out of the way, but was really the target ultimately. But he's back on form. He now chases down Oz Negri for that second spot.
Just put a move there on Mamo Gidley for third. So the 01 still running on song, and the man who was behind that wheel earlier in the race, Mamo Rojas.
Yeah, and he looks like he's had a chance to cool off. Mamo, this team took a big hit at Lime Rock in points, another big hit just this past week, but it just has lady luck on its side with the problems with the 10 car and the 61. Why is this team so lucky this season?
You know, we're just trying not to step on our own foot. Graham took that decision, which we don't agree with. But if you look back, I mean, it's just people making mistake after another, and we just managed to stay cool, have a fast car, stay consistent, and win races. So, I mean, cars obviously not good with the penalty we got, but we do the best we can, and things happen to be okay.
We saw the 61 get into the back of you really hard in pit lane, and now a little bit of contact with the 75 car. Is everything okay with the 01?
Yeah, our car is fine. I was really worried he could have bent an exhaust pipe or something. I don't know why he did that. He made a mistake in the pit lane, but that's his problem, I guess.
Well, it looks like it could be a good points day for the 01.
Scott Pruitt went from one side to the other, back to the inside on Oz Negri. Will he get a good drive off this corner and set up the Brazilian? Here we go. Pruitt on Negri. Oh, tight.
That was huge. Pruitt did not trade bodywork, as we saw with Fogarty and Wilkins Fogarty and Taylor earlier in the same corner. And then Oz defended. Pruitt sliced it to the inside, and I think where they got that car trimmed out today, aerodynamically, it really gives them the edge down the straightaway, Dorsey. The BMW takes the position.
I got to say, guys, either through the penalty or the engine situation, I haven't seen so much animosity amongst these drivers as I'm seeing right now. A lot of mistakes being made. I think the tension level here at Daytona is really high.
I spoke to the engineer, Brad Goldberg, on the 01 this morning. He said, I could give Scott Pruitt 3 wheels on that car right now. He's going to win today.
Yeah,
they just want to give us a memorable one for the 100th, right?
Well, I think everybody's really, their adrenaline's pumped up, their emotions are pumped up. Everybody's really willing to go at it, and that's why we're seeing all these mistakes, because it's uncharacteristic.
Let's not discount the 99. Alex Gurney is 7 seconds out of the lead. He's in 6th. He's on the same lap, and he's on the same pit stop rotation as the others. So the 99 is not done with yet. There we go. He's in sight. The Action Express Porsche back in.
I'm sliding to a stop, and they're going to pull the front bodywork off of it. I've not heard anything on the scanner regarding what the problem may be here. You see some grass in the radiator opening up front, and perhaps some in the brake ducts as well. So right now, a repeat of the Rolex 24 victory seems unlikely here for Action Express.
Let's switch gears and talk GT for a moment, because we've got a new leader in GT, and it's quite refreshing. It's the LG Corvette. Kelly Collins and Eric Lutz. They're out in front. Look at this, being hounded by the Corvette, the 97 Stevenson car. That's not for position. However, the 28 Corvette has a handy buffer over Andy Lally's Porsche and Andy Wallace. Yes, that is Andy Wallace, who is racing here this weekend. Andy's back in the series for the first time ever in a GT car in the 42 Salins RX-8.
Be great to see Lou Lally's 28 car do well. He's really had a tough time. Big crash mid-Ohio. Then just yesterday, Eric Lutz backed into the wall. Had to rebuild that whole back end, took off the wing, everything. So they need a win.
Remember, they had those half shaft issues earlier in the season, and you'd have to think if they're going to be tested, it'll be right here on these high banks.
We should make a point that first and third, here is Andy Wallace in the 42, and the class-leading car have been out there. They have not stopped in quite a while, so they're running low on fuel while the others are in much better shape.
Unbelievable to think that Andy Wallace has never, ever driven a tin-top car before. He's always been in prototypes and open-wheel things, so his first time in a sedan.
I'll tell you, watching his line there, I think he was watching the Nationwide race last night and thinks that's how you drive a sedan around here. He's running the old high groove.
Andy, of course, a Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series legend, and he has been a significant part of many of the milestones in the Daytona prototype era. He partnered the only woman to ever win a Grand Am race in DPs, and that was, of course, Milka Duno at Homestead Miami Speedway. This is Daytona, and this is the race to crown a champion in 2010. It is pretty windy here at Daytona, but it is quite warm, so cooling off is the key to today, that's for sure. Yeah, hi, how you doing? It's an enjoyable day for motor racing, that's for sure. Quick reminder about TSR, your one-stop motorsport show. News show, the Speed Report, every Sunday on Speed at 7 p.m. Eastern. So much going on this weekend, and hosted by Rick Allen and Bob Varsha. And don't say anything about the height disparity between when I do the show and Rick Allen, because I feel very, very short.
Two guys in the same zip code.
And a featured guest on Wind Tunnel tomorrow night with Dave Despain at 9 p.m. Eastern is FIA President Jean Todt. And Mr. Todt is here at the World Centre of Racing. Appropriate, there's an FIA flag flying, yes, and he was up here a little earlier right next to us in race control with Mark Raffoff and the boys. There is the VP of competition, Dave Spitzer, on the right with Jean Todt. And it's not the first time that a president of the FIA has visited the facility or to the United States to check out motor racing as well. So we haven't actually been given an official explanation as to why Jean Todt is here, but mainly just a little bit of an information-seeking exercise and just seeing how motorsport goes on in the United States.
And he's really taken in every part of the weekend. He was at the drivers' meeting this morning. I met him briefly. Very nice man, and he was introduced to all of the drivers, so great to see him here this weekend. Certainly taking an interesting look at how it works here in Grand Am Racing.
The Rolex 24 at Daytona winner, Ryan Dial, leads this race. He's got just about half a second over Scott Pruitt, then Negri, Gidley, and Nick Johnson, and a car that was leading in our second class in GT a little earlier. Let's hear from one of its co-drivers.
Eric Luck standing down here right now. Eric, I understand you're going to get back in the car. It is so hot right now. You and Kelly are going to switch off. But the car, we saw it in the lead, running really well. Now it's beginning to drop back. Is that a top speed issue? You guys just saving tires?
No, it goes back to the Prep 1, Prep 2 difference. It's just that after about 20 minutes, we just have the car falls away a little bit. And Grand Am's been really great helping LG Motorsports get into this series. And, you know, I'm confident in Grand Am and LG Motorsports to find a balance where it can be competitive during the whole duration of the race. LG Motorsports did a great job getting this car ready for today's race, and Kelly's doing a wonderful drive out there now, so looking forward to getting back in and having a good run.
It is definitely hot in the car. And Lou Gelati, you talk about coming to endurance racing. You and I were just talking, most racing you've done is sprint racing. How difficult is it for you to get a hold of the strategy? Because I think strategy had a lot to do with you getting you guys to the front today.
The strategy is a little more difficult for us. We did get to the lead because of strategy. We don't quite have the package to stay up front, but we're going to work on it. We have one more rabbit to pull out of our hat in about 11 minutes. So, but we did win a 24-hour race in Mossport 1-2. So we have some endurance racing.
Some endurance racing, and you heard him say they've got a good car. They just need a little help. They're going to continue to work on it. We'll call them now the little team that could, Lee.
Lou's a great guy. He and I go all the way back to amateur racing in the 70s. He's driven everything. The guy's just...
He's old.
Yeah,
he's older than you.
Yeah, I know, and that's hard to believe.
Doesn't look it, but he is.
Here's the second place car in GT, Joey Hand. He's about 3.5 seconds behind class leader Andy Lally. So we've got a Porsche leading a BMW, leading a Corvette. Good variety in GT as well.
What a drive he put in at Mid-Ohio. He was absolutely toasted when he got out of that car, having won with Bill Oberlin in the last round, and he said, we really had a problem that day. The cool suit wasn't working, the blower wasn't working. He said, I was literally fried, but he said, I wasn't going to let that win get away from me, and they're in pretty good shape here again today. Joey Hand now behind the wheel, third driver to see action today.
Two things I noticed, guys. One is how slippery the racetrack has got because it's very, very hot. You see the car squirming around like crazy. That plays into the hands of the car you're looking right now, the 66 Porsche, Andy Lally. The other thing I noticed was while we were on board, it's getting very dark outside, and if it should rain, which we talked about at the beginning of the show, Mr. Lally's going to go really fast.
Hey, Dorsey, as you're talking about it getting dark, that's exactly what I'm hearing all the spotters saying on the top of the grandstands. All morning long, rain has been swirling off the east coast of Florida here, but now the wind is picking up, cooler temperatures coming in, and all the spotters are saying, hey, guys, it's starting to get real dark out here, and it looks like that rain is starting to push in from being offshore.
It is not something foreign to see Andy Lally and that famous TRG 66 out in front. Andy has a massive weekend because as soon as this race is over, he races to the airport to fly to Portland, Oregon, where he is taking part in the IGSA World Cup luge race. It is the biggest one in North America. He has been a regular competitor in the World Cup of luging before, but this year he's going to do at least 4 of the rounds, and that's how they score the World Cup, to take your best 4 results. He is trying to become a world champion, so we wish him well in that crazy thing that he does each and every year.
Do they race those in the rain?
I don't know. Let's go to TRG.
We talk about Andy Lally being crazy. He hangs out in good company. He hangs out with Kevin Buckler. And Kevin, you guys have a big weekend. You got a Cup car this weekend. You got the Rolex GT cars right now. We consider you the master strategist. 4 starts, 2 wins. We're going to make it 3 wins and 5 starts.
Andy's doing great. We're in the lead. We're still in the lead. Joey Hand's closing in on us pretty good. If we can maintain this, we're in good position. 67, we couldn't get our lap back. It's going to be kind of hard. Without gravel traps, it's hard to get that double wave by we've been pulling off lately. But I think we got a good shot here. But there's some really good competitors behind us, and I'd love to get 3 in a row. You bet.
If anybody can make it work here, it'd be Kevin Buckler, Lee.
They're trying hard, working well. It's nice to see 2 cars, 2 TRG Porsches here at this round. We've got drama in GT. It involves the 41 of Lee Keane. Look at the second group of cars.
Just going at the wrong angle there on the first turn of the corner and just got a little bit wide, carrying the speed through the corner. Rarely do we see him make a mistake these days.
We've got a race for the lead, boys. Dorse, look at this. Ryan Dial is coming under increasing pressure from Scott Pruitt for the lead of this race. These top 2 cars are the top 2 in the championship, remember, and we're just getting some reports that there may be rain falling.
I'll tell you what, Ryan Dial has done a tremendous job here. Both of the Starworks cars had a problem in yesterday morning's practice session. As the track started to dry out, they both exploded a right rear tire, literally ripped off the corner of the bodywork. Ryan Dial, Peter Barron and Mike Forrest went a visit to the Home Depot as he's now feeling the pressure from Pruitt, who just sweeps by him and takes the lead away. This car we're on board with has got $84 worth of Home Depot bits on it to see the green flag today.
Pruitt to the front. 2 BMW-powered Rileys in the top 2 positions. And look at him drive away from Ryan Dial.
Yeah, that's kind of strange with the same motor, wouldn't you think?
Well, he's really trimmed out. Again, we spoke to the Ganassi squad. They took 5 degrees out of that rear spoiler. That will give you a ton of straight line speed, maybe 3 or 4 miles an hour. They said that's our strategy today. And Scott really likes to run the car trimmed down.
Chris.
Well, guys, talking to Ryan Dial after those problems in practice yesterday, he said, you know, even though we're missing some time, I'm not too worried because we really found something before Mid-Ohio, and this car is just so easy to drive right now. You can literally drive it into the slow corners, first, second gear, and just stand on the gas, and it just sticks coming out. But listening to these 2 drivers over the radio, really giving their crew chiefs lots of feedback right now, trying to get ready for that last pit stop and make any potential tire pressure changes. Scott Pruitt saying one thing, that the car is a little bit tight in the center of the corner. DL still saying that the car gets off very well in the slow speed stuff.
There we see the 75 car, Nick Johnson pitting. There's 1 hour and 2 minutes to go, and I think what David Brown and Jeff Hazler are doing here is trying to be the first driver to make that final pit stop. If there's a yellow, they will leapfrog to the front.
With the possibility of rain, a yellow's pretty likely.
Hopefully it's not them.
Yes.
Some 7 lead changes already in this race, and we've still got an hour, a full hour of racing left to come here at the World Center of Racing. There is only one NASCAR show that delivers the drivers, the crew chiefs, the latest news and information, and expert analysis from the epicenter of the NASCAR nation at Charlotte, North Carolina, in the Speed Studios. Of course, it is the NASCAR Race Hub, presented by Hooters, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern. We look forward to that. It's now an expanded coverage. The guys on the Race Hub doing a nice job and working very, very hard. We're back here at Daytona. There have been isolated drops of rain. Nothing coming very steady at the moment, but the teams are watching the skies very closely. David Donahue, we ride with him in the Brumos Porsche. He's 5th at the moment, trying to play catch-up, still on the lead lap. But if it weren't for that that additional pit stop for that right front, how high, how far could have this 59 Brumos Porsche gone? One of the stories of the race involves the AIM Autosport Daytona prototype that, incidentally, David Donahue is coming up on now. Let's find out more from Mark Wilkins.
Yeah, Lee, going into this race, they were just 7 points back in the championship, but now looks like about 7 laps back in this race. Mark, what happened on pit lane?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's always really close, and we had a really good stop. The guys did a great stop for us, and it looked like I was going to be able to challenge the 01 car to get out. And I thought I left him enough room, and it looked like I'm not quite sure if he moved over. It's tough to tell. I mean, just trying to get his track position and keep racing hard, and it was unfortunate. Caught the nose and broke the nose on the 01 car, and when I went out of the pits, the nose came off, and anyway, so it's a long stop to get that fixed, and it's just unfortunate for the guys. We struggled a little bit this weekend. We got a really good car on the wet, and if the rain comes, maybe we can get a little bit back, but tough race weekend for us. We're going to have to bounce back, but we've done that in the past, and I think we can do that again.
It looked like you hit him twice in pit lane. What happened there?
No, I think it was just the once here. I came out and we're all sideways on the new tires, and I think we clipped, and then I backed up and we went back out on track, and it is what it is, and I just had to come around and get the damage repaired, and it was just unfortunate. A lot of new parts, but we'll bounce back and we'll be there in New Jersey, and we'll race hard and hopefully be right up front.
Lee, you were talking about the spotty showers, still drivers talking about it raining on different parts of the racetrack, but there's so much heat in the racetrack, it's evaporating really quickly. Some of the spotters saying that the showers are much heavier north of the track, but they don't know if they're going to get here. Brian?
Well, we talk about the 100th anniversary for Daytona Prototypes, a guy that we're used to seeing drive a Daytona Prototype. Andy Wallace, it's great to see you back at the racetrack in Daytona, but something you haven't done, at least recently, is drive a GT car down here with Salins. How was the Mazda today?
Well, as always, the Mazda was really good. I tell you what, though, the DP cars do come past quickly in certain places, and I'm really, as you say, I'm not used to that. I'm looking out for them the whole time, and then they just appear. So, yeah, you have to have your wits about you. You look as much behind as in front.
As you look back, I know you spent a lot of time in Daytona Prototypes. We celebrate the 100th Daytona Prototype race today. Were you impressed where the series has gone?
Well, absolutely, and the fact that it's reached the milestone of the 100th race has got to say something about the category. They've done a great job. The economy right now is brilliant, but we've still got a good field of cars out there, so you can't ask for more, I think.
It's always great to see Andy Wallace at the racetrack. It'll be great to see him back in a Daytona Prototype. But this Salins team looking for a win today. It's Anita Salins' birthday. She wants a birthday present.
All right, let's cross our list off. We've got the 75 Krone car, it's stopped. We've had the 99 Gainsco car, it's stopped. Now add to that list the 59 machine is in, and the 60 Mike Shank Ford. These cars are good to go to the end.
I think if you're the leaders of this race right now, you have to recognize that, and the yellow is just going to hurt you at this stage. However, it depends how your tires are wearing. If you change tires now and you're not seeing good tire wear, the balance is going away, maybe it may push you to roll the dice a little bit longer and have fresher tires on for a sprint to the checkered flag this afternoon.
Riding with second place Ryan Dial. Scott Pruitt has just said see you later. He's 3 seconds up the track. You can just see him. And behind these guys is Memo Gidley in the McDonald's Dallara for Kevin Doran, and the second place car is in. Here comes the Starworks BMW on pit road. Dial brings it down to the 45-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit, and we'll be looking for crew chief Peter Barron, team principal Peter Barron, and the rest of his men to perform a final stop. There's Bill Riley calling the shots.
Peter Barron leaping out there to give Ryan a fresh drinks bottle. What a miracle they have performed here this weekend. Chris?
Yeah, good run right now. Going to do 4 tires on that car, fuel. And typically we see the 01 car being one of the first cars to try and come to pit lane as soon as they get in that fuel window. But watching Tim Keene, he's really been watching the radar. He's been talking to Brad Garrett, and he's been getting off the war wagon, really looking around to see if any rain is coming, trying to hold off till the last possible moment to see, are we going to go rains or are we going to go slicks? And right now we see the 01 guys getting ready on pit wall to come to pit lane, and it looks like they're going to do slicks as we still haven't seen the rain.
Really encouraging run by Dion von Moltke and Memo Gidley. We know what to expect with Gidley, but Dion von Moltke is somebody new to the series. We've watched him grow and develop. This is a steady ride now for Dion, and partnering with someone like Memo Gidley, so experienced like Memo Gidley, has really done the young man well. So this is good. This will bring a smile to Kevin Doran's face. Brian.
Dion von Moltke out of the car, and Lee was just talking about it. It's great to see young talent in the series. You've really come through the whole Grand American ladder, if you would, from the Continental Tire into the Daytona Prototype. The car today seems to be really magic here. How good is it?
Kevin has done a great job in the PR Newswire, South African Airways, McDonald's, Fort Delara here. It's really moving up there. It's, coming here a year ago, we had a tragedy. One of my good friends, the manager of Henny Grunwald, who was my co-driver last year, his daughter died this day last year. So we're kind of dedicating this race to her, and hopefully maybe she's looking after us and making a good car for us here.
They got their fingers crossed. They're about to make their final pit stop of the day here, Lee. Or Chris?
Yeah, Scott Pruitt is in. Once again, Tim Keen all over the radio saying, hey guys, let's make this perfect. No penalties here in pit lane. Fuel, tires, looking at the back end of the car. No real damage back there. Little tap on the shoulder with the stick to make sure we get enough fuel in the car, and Scott Pruitt is down away. Brian?
77 rolling into their final stop of the day. Memo Gidley behind the wheel. I talked to Memo earlier, and he said, our only concern is rear tire wear. Calvin was talking about it earlier. Tires that come off the car look good. Gidley should have a good Delara underneath him when he heads back out. Kevin Doran always seems to have a good setup when they come here to Daytona. We'll see what Gidley can do with it when he gets back out on track. Routine stop. They'll be down here shortly.
I'll tell you what, if it rains, Memo was sensational at the 24-hour race when we saw some wet weather running there. He took the car to the front. There we see a little rubber. I think that's the seal on the left side door there as a drift. Shouldn't be a big drama.
It was good to hear from Gidley's teammate, Dion von Moltke. The youth movement is happening. We've got 6 drivers in the series now in this race under the age of 21. The weather is coming. We'll keep an eye on it.
David has got the run. He's got the lead. David Donohue takes the lead with 40 minutes to go.
Yes, he will emulate his father. 40 years, the anniversary, and the Donohue family name is back in victory lane. And so too is Brumos.
Wasn't that a magical moment for the Brumos organisation? We might see some magical moments here by the looks of those skies. And an overview there, because we're celebrating the 100th Daytona prototype race. We spoke about that there's been some memorable ones. What about the close finishes? This has become a signature of the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series. Tight ones at the line doors.
And you might see it again here today because it's getting darker out there. Everybody's made their stops. Everybody's on slick. So if it gets wet, we're going to see him back on pit lane one more time.
I thought that was the top 5 all-time Lee Diffie miscues.
Oh. That was only 2 of them.
I've got 2 of the 5, and I know they're your highlights. 01, the Telmex BMW for Scott Pruitt, Memo Rojas. You know, folks, earlier this weekend we had the pleasure of speaking with Tim Keen, the team manager at Ganassi. He was very upset about what had happened with the penalties, etc., and it was saw it as a slur on the Ganassi name on such a celebrated organisation. And he said, you know what, nothing was illegal. Our engine builder had the engine outside the performance parameters. We understand that mistakes are made. We forgive him. We'll continue to be with Steve Dinan, who does a very nice job. But he said, I'm so mad. I'm so wound up. I've told my boys we can still go out there and win this race and win this championship. And the passion and desire that you could see in his face and just hear in his voice was overwhelming. And he drives this team hard.
They do, and they want to make a statement here today. And I think the only thing that's going to maybe get in their way right now is weather, because it is getting close. And that will really throw the cat amongst the pigeons here this afternoon.
You know, the emotions within this paddock, within this whole compound, are so huge over this whole turmoil right now. But Tim Keen's right. They can still win the championship, and they're doing it right now. They're doing it like they've done so far. They do not make mistakes. They call their game. They do a great job on the racetrack, off the racetrack. So, you know, hats off to this team. It's truly the best team, I believe.
3.7 seconds to Ryan Dial, and then another little further gap back. We pick up Oswaldo Negri for Mike Shank, the Crown Royal XR car. And we said we didn't really do these guys justice at Mid-Ohio because it was a tremendous comeback after that front straight collision with a GT car, with the 44 Magnus Porsche. That was John Pugh's fault. He put up his hand, he didn't clear him, and he clipped John Potter. The team rallied, they served a penalty, came back to be on the podium, and the 60 is in nice shape here again.
And when I say Ganassi's the best team, I'm not sliding these other teams. He's the most funded team. He's got the most engineers. He's got the most resource to do what he does. Teams like this, though, I mean, those are my heroes. No question about Shank Racing, you know, AIM Autosport. These guys do so much with so little.
They do, and this is another great story here today. The 77 car, Kevin Downey puts out such a great car, and they're just really trying to get the car in track position where maybe we can take advantage. And I think today they certainly have a great shot at a podium finish. Here we see another pit stop for the 57 car, and Chris is right on the spot.
Yeah, this team taking their last stop, just waiting for fuel to go in for Robert Liddell to get back out there. We're seeing these GT leaders come in. And very interesting today, seeing all those Mazdas start up front. But as we come down to the end of this race, we're seeing the BMW, the Camaro, and also the Porsche running up front.
Speaking of the Porsche, Andy Lally brought the 66 to pit road, and Joey Hand assumes the race of the lead in GT. The 57, will it be in the mix? What can Robin Liddell do? We will see. It should be, well, certainly Mike Johnson and the gang are hoping for a stronger second half of the season. Here is the car shared by Andy Lally and RJ Valentine. Great to see RJ back in the series. Not sure how regular it will be because his business commitments take up so much of his time, but good to see the veteran driver back.
We teased him last night. He, of course, won the 24-hour here last year and afterwards celebrated the Daytona 500 win. But just all in good jest. Turner boys are in, Chris.
Joey Hand, currently the leader in GT on this pit stop. We're going to have to see if Andy Lally can get by him, as Andy has already made his pit stop. So Joey hitting his marks, going to take 4 new tires and fuel. Keeping an eye out for Andy Lally coming into the tri-oval, but he isn't here yet. Real good stop by the Turner boys as they're trying to go for back-to-back victories.
Think about what this Massachusetts-based team has accomplished. Will Turner and his men. This was really an unknown package at the beginning of this year. They're the only team full-time in the Grand Am Series campaigning this BMW M6. So they've been learning the car while having to race the car. And they've done a nice job.
You going to eat those 2 hamburgers when you're done driving this race?
if they're cooked well.
They'll be cooked. It might be like a hockey puck by the time it's over.
So Joey Hand takes the BMW M6 back out on track. So it's going to be a fight between Turner, between TRG. What can Dempsey do? What can Stevenson do? And we should not discount the Salins RX-8 as well. John Edwards for Speed Source in the 68, campaigning hard as well. So we will see. Less than 3/4 of an hour to go. And Andy Lally, we've just found out, did not get out quick enough to catch this car, the 94. We'll update you on the GT battle and the DP battle when we come back, celebrating Race 100 for the DPs.
It's exciting to be part of that. And here we are, we're sitting in the car, there's no body work, it's just the frame. And we're kind of tailoring it and making it a personalized project.
I think it was significant in 2002 and 2003 that Grand Am chose to develop its own product, its own kind of car, to have control over our own destiny, and it hit the mark, which was we were going to be about racing, side-by-side racing and competition and close competition.
Victory, it's close though, he's out of the field!
And it's clearly gotten to be one of the toughest formulas to succeed in, as new people have come in and tried and seen how hard it is.
Well, it's kind of hard to believe, you know. It seems like just 2 years ago we started the formula with Grand Am. It's a great car. It's probably turned out to be a more competitive, better race car than anybody could have imagined. It's been fun to be part of it.
The series has come a long, long way from 2003 when we debuted with 6 cars. And at the time, they were all out of the box, and it was more a race of survival and attrition. Now they're flat-out sprint races with big teams and big support. So it's a great series off of straight racing, just like it did in the very first day, and the 100th race while time has flown.
We've done a lot in a short period of time. It's pretty rewarding to see that the original concept played out the way it was envisioned to.
Nice to hear those words, isn't it? And there's a man who has played an integral part in the history of Daytona prototypes. Bill Riley, he's standing by. Let's hear from the man.
Yeah, and Bill Riley looking for his 71st win in 100 starts for his chassis. And Bill, you and your dad started putting pencil to paper back in 2002. Did you have any idea that your chassis was going to be this dominant?
No, we didn't. It was kind of a picture-perfect program. The first year wasn't really good because we couldn't sell the car. We couldn't figure out why. You know, then the next year in 04, we sold, Chip came along, bought 2 cars. Wayne Taylor came with SunTrust. We ran the factory program. And it just went from there. I mean, I think the big thing that helped the car a lot was having Ganassi run the car, having us run our own house car with drivers like Max Angelelli and Mark Gosens being our lead drivers. That just really propelled our development and got everybody.
Where do you see things going in the next 100 races?
It's going to get tougher, for manufacturers. With Dallara and Lola coming in, they're pretty tough to deal with. So it's going to get tougher for us.
Well, he's done a great job so far, and looks like he's going to get that win today.
An absolute stunning performance from Bill Riley, Riley Technologies, and everybody involved up there in Mooresville, North Carolina. Well done. This is a Riley chassis car at the hands of Scott Pruitt.
Well, he'll win if Pruitt wins, but the one he wants to really see win today is the 8 car, because he's on the box for Ryan Dial, who's chasing down Scott Pruitt.
While we were away, we want to show you something that went down between Michael Valiente and Joao Barbosa. Poor old Joao must be saying, what is it at the end of races and me getting hit?
He's got a target on the car, apparently, because he keeps taking around. Unfortunately, that incident cost the 6 a stop-and-go penalty.
Well, let's find out more about the 6, Brian.
Well, it's even more costly than that. I don't know that the contact did it, but the 6 sits behind the pits right now. A broken half shaft on the left side of the car has put it out of competition today. What started out with such great promise has now dropped away with a broken half shaft.
Now, it could have been a result of the hit. It could be a result of trying to do a burnout one too many times out of the pits. But
Janssen in really deep there on Gidley, trying to take away 4th spot.
He's got the dirty tire syndrome right now. No grip whatsoever as he went out into the clag, as Mr. Hobbs would say, and picked up all the debris.
We talk about Gidley praying for rain to maybe get a win here today and promote himself up the order. Certainly Nick Janssen in this Lola. I think they set the car up for the rain. They were very fast in yesterday's practice session when it was full wet mode. And this car performs very well, and Nick's one of the best when the track gets slippery.
He's just one place away from the first podium. Or if he can get up there with Oz Negri, because they've had a 4th this year. That was at the Rolex 2024 earlier this year.
If you watch the 75 in the corners, we're going to take a look at Nick as he gets down here into turn 1. Gets in really hot. Really hot. Locks up out in the dirty area. Picks up all that rubber. Now he's really pretty defenseless. Oh, good save across that flat.
Saved it a couple of times, and he's obviously got quite a bit of rear brake in that thing, George. Remember, he got in a Pruitt when all got bundled up there down into the horseshoe earlier in the race.
Watch as he turns into the corner and look at the attitude of the body, the roll in the body compared to the chassis as the wheels go up and down in the fender well. It looks like the car is very soft, like they've got a semi-soft setup for the rain in it, because there's a lot of lean in that car.
Yeah, a lot of people expected this race to see some wet weather running, and certainly that can be a compromise in the setup where you're banking, you're gambling on it raining, and then the setup really ideally needs to be very different from dry conditions.
So it's Pruitt, Dial, Negri, Gidley, then this man here, the 75 of Nick Janssen, then David Donohue. In GT, it's Joey Hand being chased by Andy Lally. It's BMW versus Porsche. How far back is Andy, though?
Lally
He's 8.5 seconds.
He is, but he just laid down the fastest lap of the race of 50.9, so he is chasing down Joey Hand and took over a second out of the lead.
Lee Keane is in 3rd place. Joey has won this race, the Brumos Porsche 250, in the past, and also in a BMW, but not an M6. He's won in an M3. So we'll see if he can be a repeat victor in this iconic event.
His teammate Billy Oberlin was won it twice, 2002, 2004. And what a day it would be for Paul Dallalana.
Here is Andy. So that's what 8.5 seconds looks like on the racetrack. We'll see if he can do anything about Joey Hand. Lee Keane, in the now sole remaining Dempsey Mazda in this race, maintains 3rd ahead of the championship points leader. And Wayne Nonamaker in the 43 Salens Mazda is in the top 5. Good run. Speed's coverage of the Rolex Sports Car Series is brought to you by New Finish Cling Instant Detailer. The shine that sticks. Well, we may see some shine here if this rain falls high above Daytona International Speedway. The clouds are threatening. We are seeing drops of rain on the camera lenses here on the onboard cameras, like this one with David Donohue, who has done a very nice job reeling in Nick Janssen. We'll get back to this fight in a moment because it is for a top 5 position. But for those of you just turning on, let's bring you up to date with our race recap. 20-year-old Ricky Taylor started on pole for the 2nd time, the 3rd time for that number 10 SunTrust Dallara. And championship challenger Sylvain Tremblay on pole in GT, fighting off young Jordan Taylor. Pit lane incident here involving the 01 of Memo Rojas, the 61 of Mark Wilkins. Mark took exception to that and off flew his front bodywork. He slammed into the back of Rojas under the caution, and it damaged the radiator. The 6 of Brian Frizzell was leading. Fogarty was pushing, but pushing a little too hard on Ricky Taylor.
He was. He just touched him there. There you see the frustration from his father and team owner, Wayne.
And then an anxious moment, a nervous moment, but a great catch by Sylvain Tremblay.
Blows a right rear tire and does a great save. I have to assume he felt the vibration and was ready for that.
Then the fight was on. Rojas reeling in Brian Frizzell, who just lost it, and he said he was struggling with rear-end grip.
He had really lost total grip at the back end of the car. Then there was some dramas for the Stevenson Motorsport group here in pit lane. The 97, it's one of the 57 tires. They got delayed, and a penalty was served by the 97 car.
They had done some nice work to get that car up front. Buddy Rice leading on a restart, but only momentarily because he ran wide. Wild scenes with Nick Johnson clouding the 01 there of Scott Pruitt, and then Pruitt and Oz Negri racing like we've seen now for some 100 races.
They prove you can race close and not have to hit one another. They got pretty close, however.
Michael Valiente and João Barbosa. This was just a few laps ago, turning the Portuguese driver around in the Action Express Porsche. That caused a penalty, but then they had a broken half shaft. The 6th Dallara for Mike Shank Racing sidelined, while the sister 60 car is in good shape for a podium. Our Pirelli race summary shows you the important numbers. And interesting there, 7 lead changes, already 3 more than this race a year ago. Donahue has got there on Nick Johnson for 5th.
Yeah, got the run down the back stretch and gets on the brakes a little bit later than Nick into the bus stop chicane. Takes away that 5th position.
And looking at lap times, David Donahue is running really quickly. There's about 3 cars out there. Scott Pruitt, the leader, is one of them that are running these numbers in the 42s.
Grand Am is all about 2 classes on the track at the one time. The second class is GT, and it is being led by Joey Hand. His team principal is the hamburger helper.
Well, World Turner's looking to have his team go back-to-back victories. Will, you were one of the last GT teams to pit and take fuel, but now listening to the radio, it sounds like there's some fuel concerns.
Yeah, you know, we've done everything right all day. The drivers did a great job, all 3 of them, strategy, everything. But after that last pit stop, it seems like our car's using a little more fuel than we've calculated. I mean, a lot more fuel. So there might be something wrong. It might be an electrical thing. We're not sure. So right now, we're all scratching our heads, hoping we can go the distance.
Now you've got your little hamburger science experiment going on inside the car. Any progress? Any idea what's going on there?
You know, I keep asking if they smell burger, right? And the answer is still no. But it's going to be interesting to see because the drivers have all complained that these cars are hot. All the GT cars are hot. And they're saying, we're getting cooked in here. We're getting cooked. So throw a burger in there. We'll see what happens.
Well, my tummy's growling, so hopefully it's cooked and I can have a bite. Brian?
Well, Joe Foster and Charles Espenlaub wanted to share a little sunshine this weekend at Dempsey Racing. And Joe, things really not going your way, running so strong, but the 40 car now out. What did it?
Well, actually, we had a great top 5 run going for the Share a Little Sunshine Mazda this weekend at Daytona, and didn't work out like we planned. Obviously, we got, as you probably know, we got hit by a Daytona prototype. Probably the 2nd or 3rd time this season we've got hit by a Daytona prototype, and so it's pretty frustrating, obviously. Patrick, while he's away working on movies, has worked hard to get the team the resources it needs to improve, and the 40 was up there in the top 5. 41 Global Diving and Salvage car is still up there as well, and we did have a very good rowing. It's very unfortunate we got hit yet again, and obviously people a lot smarter than me have got to figure this all out because we learned in Mid-Ohio you can hit a GT car, get a penalty, and still finish on the podium.
A little frustrating for them, that is for sure. The 41 car still running well, guys, and just because the sun's shining on them doesn't mean you can't come and visit Florida, Lee.
Exactly right. Let's bring you up to date with what went on here between these boys. You ride with David Donahue. This is a replay of the move for 5th on Nick Johnson. Enjoy it. Creeping up, creeping up. Gotcha. Did you like that one, Dorse?
That's how you do it. That was almost too easy.
Yeah, we know that flat 6 Porsche is awfully strong around Daytona. Remember their tremendous victory here last year in the 24-hour race. And I think that the 75 boys have probably got that car set up a little bit with some downforce in case it rained, and that's going to hurt you down the straightaway. But here he comes back at him. But obviously David had the inside line when you get to the brake pedal.
Yeah, that was pretty gentlemanly driving back there. You know, I think, like you said, Calvin, I think the Porsche's got the legs right now and probably less aero push.
Scott Pruitt's got the legs, 8.6 seconds in front of his championship challenger, Ryan Dial. And in GT, Andy Lally is on the move. He is starting to reel in Joey Hand. We'll follow that when we come back. Our highlights here of Andy Lally, championship contender. His 2 wins. The first one came at VIR with Ted Ballou. Second one, and more recently, at the 6 Hours of the Glen. He was being chased down by Lee Keane, but it didn't matter. He got there in the end, and he said, I've had 4 different teams this year. I've raced 4, 6 different teammates, not including the Rolex 24, 5 different cars, and I'm still third in the points. I'm still a contender, and he's in good shape. He's just sliced almost another second off this car here. Lally is starting to catch the 94 like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, and I tell you what doesn't make sense. We spoke to Will Turner about the fuel situation. They pitted with only 42 minutes left in this race. Now, talking to Don Salamo, who calls the strategy on this group yesterday, he said they should be able to run about an hour. So I wonder if they're not just eating up the fuel, but a question of whether they didn't get all the fuel in the car. Because remember, they beat the 66 car out, which Kevin Buckler didn't understand. They did it on different laps, but suddenly they leapt ahead of the 66, and that surprised everyone. So did they get a full fuel load? Is that what they're trying to recover from right now?
You got to wonder when Andy Lally gets there, which it looks like he will there be retribution for the last time when he pushed the 94 off?
There was some strong feelings between Andy Lally and Billy Auberlin. They discussed that after the VIR round, that's for sure. They've just come past a new Mazda being fielded by Speed Source and Julian and Sebastian Martinez, 2 young Colombian brothers making their first Rolex Sports Car Series race. So like to see them around a lot more. We wish them well.
They got some support from Juan Pablo Montoya, obviously from Colombia as well. He met the guys when they started in go-karts, and he's been visiting their paddock area and giving the 2 boys a few tips along the way.
5.4 seconds last time round between this car here, Joey Hand and Andy Lally. What would the points look like right now? Andy would leapfrog Sylvain Tremblay by 1 point as he would edge closer to Emil Asentato and Jeff Siegel of Speed Source. That 69 car is currently third in the GT Scramble right now. So it is tied. We're celebrating 100 races for the Daytona prototypes. 2 men instrumental and who have a very special place in the history of this category are standing by.
Yeah, Lee, when you talk Daytona prototype, you can't talk about Terry Borcheller and Hurley Haywood when you talk about Daytona prototypes, because you guys really have so much history there. Hurley, for you developed this concept of the Daytona prototype, and in fact, I understand that you're the one who came up with the name for the car.
Yeah, the actual shape came on a cocktail napkin, and we were up in the conference room at the Speedway and named the series, so I'm pretty proud of that.
I know you're proud of that, but you too, talk about the history, you had the first win in a Daytona prototype as well. You still remember it?
Well, I very distinctly remember the first win, but even more clearly I remember the first time I ever sat in a Daytona prototype was up at Fab Car shops up in Indianapolis. We drove the thing with no bodywork on it, and I spun it right in front of Dave Clem. I missed the guardrail by about an inch, so it goes way back. We're proud of that car.
Now Hurley is proud of that. We talk about first wins, but for Terry Borcheller, you were the first ever Daytona prototype champion throughout a season. When you look back on it from the very beginning, can you believe where it's gotten to now?
I really can. I mean, it's amazing how the teams have come along on board, the cars, how they've evolved. It's just been an amazing and impressive run for about 9 years, and just real happy to be a part of it. And 2003 seems like a long way away with the way our luck's been going lately, but I'm looking forward to being back on top, and I'm real happy to be around with Hurley and the Action Express team and the Brumos guys. It's a great organization, and I'm real happy to be here.
2 gentlemen who were in it from the very beginning and are still there. Remember, Brumos, the only team that has run every Daytona prototype event since its inception.
And we should say a hi to Forrest Barber, who campaigned that 03 season with Terry Borcheller. Up front, it's looking good for Scott Pruitt, Memo Rojas, and the Ganassi organization. The Telmex BMW is running strong. It's now 12+ seconds out in front, and Pruitt can go into cruise mode from here with 17 minutes remaining. This is the man who's chasing Ryan Dial. Super day as far as championship points, except the guy he's chasing is out in front of him.
Yeah, problems there for the 77. Those guys were running 5th with Mamo Gidley behind the wheel. Is he back up to speed?
I
so.
think he is.
Yeah.
Must have had a simple spin down there in the bus stop.
I don't think there is a simple spin.
Yeah.
It's a lucky
That
one.
means he didn't hit anything after he spun.
David Donahue continues his strong progress. Meanwhile, in GT, What's going to happen here? The 28 LG Motorsports Corvette. Oh, hits the class-leading car.
Oh, remember Eric Lux and Joey Hand had harsh words on pit lane at Mid-Ohio.
Oh, that's exactly right. Eric Lux came down and got in his face.
So that was a I remember. Chris?
Yeah, and Joey Hand all over the radio upset about that one, telling the team, hey, you know, we're just getting by these guys, and he's holding me up, and he's hitting me. So someone get over to a Grand Am official, of which one of the crew members did do. But, you know, it sounds like Eric Lux remembering what happened just a couple races ago.
There was so much talk about last week in NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing about retaliation after Sonoma. There's a bit of retaliation going on here as the credits are adding up throughout a season.
Question on Joey Hand. His pace has dropped dramatically. Is he just trying to save enough fuel to maybe squeak this one out? Because he was some 3 seconds off that last lap, and now look at the gap he has over Andy Lally. It's basically nothing.
I think that BMW is in trouble with fuel, no question about it. Andy Lally's run him down. Certainly that skirmish that was with Eric Lux is probably hurting him. He probably is getting slowed up there.
Yeah, Eric Lux has just killed him here. He's been trying to maintain a lead over Andy Lally and going in trying to save fuel in that car. And obviously, with him being stuck behind Eric Lux right now, Andy Lally has chopped into that lead. And guys, I talked to Will Turner again and also the fueler, and they filled that car all the way up. So the speculation about whether they short-filled that car, at least these guys are saying they topped it off.
And it went from 4.3 seconds to this. Andy Lally has an inside run here on Joey Hand. BMW versus Porsche, Turner versus TRG, and we've still got 15 minutes to go.
Let's start slinging them hamburgers out right about now.
Yeah, he needs to wait out of the car.
Yeah.
Anything he's got, but he was driving all over the curbs there as he came off the horseshoe turn. Now he's going to try and get that track position back around Eric Lux, slides to the inside. Lally tries to go with him.
Yeah, this could get ugly. No.
Get through safely, no worries there. So they can continue their fight for the lead of the GT class.
Lally gets the power down better off the bus stop chicane. He gets a run on Joey Hand.
Remember last week, Andy competed in NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing at Loudon, New Hampshire. So he's used to the high banks. He enjoyed that first run in Sprint Cup on an oval. And now he's back to where he feels most at home, behind the wheel of a Porsche, battling for lead, and it could be 3 wins in as many races for TRG in this championship.
Takes the Porsche to the high side, gives him a little bit more mile per hour, locks up Joey Hand.
Hang on
in
to
trouble. Now, did that flat spot the tire? That's the question.
He runs wide, Joey.
Yeah, he's trouble.
Joey's it wide. Lally gets a run. It's going to be really tight through here. You got to give each other room. They do it.
You don't want to crash there. It'd be too big for both of you.
Joey prides himself on being the last of the late breakers, but he is feeling the pressure from Andy Lally right now.
And Andy will run him clean. I mean, these guys are not going to take each other out on purpose, but they're going to go 10-10ths, no question.
Tries to look back through the kink. You can't get through there. Lucas Luer found that out earlier this year at the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Boy, I'm surprised he didn't flat spot those left side tires on the BMW, but it seems to be braking really well still.
Behind these boys in GT, Jeff Siegel is still third. Robin Liddell has got back up to fourth, and John Edwards is in the top 5.
There was a little tire smoke again. Now a Daytona prototype splits the two.
Joey's getting in really deep, locking those brakes up, having to release the brakes so he doesn't lock up any further and just run them wide off apex. There's his team owner, Will Turner and Billy Oberlin, looking on at the monitors in their pit box.
These prototypes working through are really complicating this race.
Remember that Andy Lally, or TRG I should say, did not race at Mid-Ohio. It was won by the car that is leading here, 94. The Turner Motorsport BMW M6. This is a great run from Andy now. Springboards out of the bus stop. Side by side now, the Porsche and the BMW. Andy will run high on the high banks.
Side by side, they're bumping right there. Just almost got together again.
See the bumps now around this banking. It's not an easy ride, even when you're flat out with the grip that banking should give you. Is Lally in front enough? You see the bodywork kind of coming to drift there on the left corner of Lally's car, but Joey Hand takes it back to the inside and keeps the position.
Not yet, not this lap. It's going to go on, though.
Less than 12 minutes to run here at Daytona. You get the feeling that this fight is going to go on if the BMW can stay there. Does he have enough fuel to run to the end? We're getting to the closing stages. And this 100th race for Daytona Prototypes is shaping up to be a memorable one. been quite the break for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, but they will return to action in Iowa Sunday, July 11 at 1:30 p.m. Eastern for all the usual three-wide door-to-door action that we're used to. Again, right here on Speed, and that is live from Iowa, July 11, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. We welcome you back for the final 8.5 minutes, and while we're away, Andy Lally in the famous TRG 66 got out to the front, and he did it like this.
Finally got to the inside of Joey Hand, the BMW. Now they go into the brake zone for the inner loop. That's all pretty tidy right now. Now watch the exit. Joey trying to set up a good romp on the throttle, get on the throttle early. Another look at it. Cal just gets underneath, and then that's all she wrote.
He had the track position early, then Joey took the high line at a little bit more straightaway speed, but Andy just calm and cool and collected. Just kept it together there, got the hammer down early, and has gapped him immediately.
There's Brock Wagner, the team manager at TRG, and the boys are pumped. RJ Valentine will be down there, I'm sure.
And as soon as Andy Lally got by the 94, Joey Hand reported to the team, hey guys, I have nothing for him as we're trying to conserve fuel. The team said back to Joey, hey, now you got a 29-second lead over third place, so really take care of the car, conserve as much fuel as you can, and be ready. If it stumbles, go to that reserve tank.
So, Calvin, you were right. I mean, it was a fuel issue. You just can't run it full song right now.
He's trying to save fuel, and what he needs to do is to really, I mean, if he's got nothing but Lally, back it way off, and then just hope and pray we may get a late race caution, then he'd have enough fuel left in that tank to go at him again.
30 seconds is a long way around here. He can back way off and lose a couple seconds a lap, and there's not that much time left, you know.
Don't be caught into keeping that gap right there. If he does have nothing for him, just let him go and hope that the race comes back to you.
I mean, this is such a long racetrack. You can come off that banking in turn 2 and actually just put the clutch in and coast all the way down through that in the bus stop back there before you have to get back to the throttle.
There's the Crown Royal XR, Ford-powered Riley for Mike Shank Racing with Oz Negri behind the wheel. Back-to-back podiums. Gee, that sounds good for the 60, doesn't it? For Oz and for John Pugh. And while one Mike Shank car is on the sidelines, the number 60 will fly the flag again. That's great stuff for those boys. And another good morale boost for the Ohio-based team, running third at the moment. It's a massive gap between Ryan Dial in second and Oz Negri in third, but nonetheless, they've got a handy buffer to David Donahue with, what do we got, boys? 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Oz should be able to maintain that 6-second gap to hold on to get a podium at Daytona. Now, as far as significant race wins, how about this one for the Ganassi organisation? We know the first race ever back in 03 was won by David Brabham, Dave Empringham and Scott Maxwell. Race number 25 was won by Wayne Taylor, Max Angelelli and Emmanuel Collard. That was the 05 Rolex 24 at Daytona. The last two, what Grand Am calls milestone races, have been won by this team. Race number 50 was in 06 at Watkins Glen. It was the short course race. Pruitt and Diaz, Pruitt and Rojas won race number 75 at Barber Motorsports Park 2 years ago. So they're going to do the last three milestone races if he can hang in there for another 5 minutes, 22 seconds. And at a track that this team performs very, very well at.
They really do, and certainly this is another great run for the 8 car. Ryan Dial, we look like he's going to jump back up to second in the points here. This will be his 4th podium finish of the season. Of course, he won with the Action Express team, but his 3rd podium with Mike Forrest this year in the Starworks team. And this is a team, literally, I walked in their transporter yesterday, and the mechanic, using some of those Home Depot parts, was literally beating together a brake duct. It looked like something that came off a washer-dryer vent, and just making the most of the tools they had on hand to get the car on the grid today.
We'd already told you about the third-place car, Oz Negri. What about this car, the 59 Brumos Porsche? And keep in mind, it's done an extra pit stop compared to everybody else with that loose front wheel. The car got dropped, got lowered a little too early. They had to come back and make sure that that center wheel nut was on tight and safely.
And you said it before, where would they have been right now if they didn't have to take that extra lap doing that?
Two drivers who have not missed a single Daytona prototype race since 2003. So there's your top 4 in Daytona prototypes. Speaking top 4, how about top 3? The championship leaders in GT, Emil Asentado and Jeff Siegel, again are doing it beautifully. And remember that Jeff Siegel is a championship-winning driver. He won the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge several years ago. He knows what building a championship is all about. But he said, I'm trying not to let negative thoughts get into my mind because I've never had such a start to a championship like this. So Emil and I are just being very methodical about each race, each weekend. So far, so good.
They've done a great job there. Disastrous start to the championship season. 16th place points at the 24-hour race. Then they went on a tear, winning 2 races, followed that with 2 podiums. They've been in a drought, 2 fourth-place finishes. They're back on the podium today, the way things are looking, however.
Robin Liddell and the orange Mazda there of John Edwards had a little bit of push and shove several laps ago, and Liddell has won that fight. He's got the Stevenson Camaro up into 4th place. It's not quite where we're used to seeing the Stevenson organisation, but they are working with Grand Am on trying to find the nice sweet spot for this car to perform.
Well, they're going to be doing a tyre test down at Homestead for the new Continental tyre for next year, and one thing they're looking at is trying to get a bit more rear grip for that Chevy Camaro. They've had the big weight break, but Rob Liddell spoke to us earlier this weekend and said it's not as easy as just taking weight off. You've still got to keep the balance of the race car. We really haven't had enough time to do that yet.
And Homestead Raceway down in Florida, my home state, is the toughest race track on tires of any place we go, and it's always hot down there.
Down in Florida, we're in Florida.
Oh, we are
further down.
Well, no, I'll tell you what. We're way up north in Florida from where that is. 7 hours.
You've been out in Missouri too long, Dawes.
Yeah, I guess I have. You're right.
Time running out. Just 2.5 minutes. Another top 5 for these young men. Adam Christodoulou and John Edwards, who were involved in an early race scuffle where Christodoulou was forced to serve a drive-through penalty for avoidable contact when he nailed the 07 of Scott Russell, and that was the beginning of what was to be a frustrating day for that 07 Leighton Reese Performance Group Corvette.
These guys have had a great season. Remember, they won on debut with this new car at Lime Rock, had a great second place run at Mid-Ohio, and we saw their drivers literally exhausted from the heat inside the cockpit. They don't run the air blowers like the 70 car does, so they don't have that luxury inside these cars, so it's making these very young drivers really work out hard. I spoke to John Edwards again about his training regime. He said, now I'm doing a lot less weights. He said, I'm actually sitting in a sauna, getting out, doing some cardio, and then just sitting back in to really get used to that heat soak that the body has to go through.
The heat's the worst element. I mean, the strength is easy to come by. That's no problem. But that heat, and working out in that heat, is the most horrible thing. It's the hardest thing to overcome, the mental aspect of being that uncomfortable.
I misspoke earlier about the strategy. There we see Jean Todt. We said he's taken it all in. He was at the drivers' meeting. He's been in the steward's room right beside us during the start of this race, and now he's right down there by the garage area on pit lane. But
looks like he got on the wrong side of the fence, and they won't let him back now. There's a lot of fences here at Daytona. You don't be on the wrong side of one of them.
Most spoke a little bit earlier about strategy with the 94 car. Obviously, we spoke about a late race caution. That wouldn't have helped them because there's not enough time to get that procedure through. So certainly for Joey Hand, the 94 car, they're going to be pushing hard. But here we're looking at Pruitt, the 01. Can he get that big win in the 100th race here for the Daytona prototypes?
Going for win number 6 from 8 races started, and that number is significant because they won 6 races. The last time they, being Memo Rojas and Scott Pruitt, were champions back in 2008. That would equal their record since starting in the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series in 2004.
Not very far to go for Scott right now. I'm showing 17 seconds left in this race. This could be it.
Nail will
get one more, I think.
He's going to go by too quick.
Notice, Lee, you were waiting there just to...
Hey, I've learned patience after 15 years of broadcasting.
5 seconons he had.
There's Chip Ganassi and Tim Keane on the left. Watching closely, of course, huge weekend for Chip. He's got his Sprint Cup team here with Jamie McMurray and Juan Pablo Montoya. Remember, they'll be guests on NASCAR Race Day built by the Home Depot a little later today.
I think this may be their most satisfying win, to come back from the penalties in the last 10 days that they had to endure. This is a brilliant win for this team if they can hang on.
Nobody really would have thought this. I didn't have it, after I saw all that was done, that they would be where they are now. And it all happened pretty easily for this team, believe it or not.
Quick update. We're going to heap these guys with lots of praise, but a quick update in GT. There was a drama for Jeff Siegel, the 69, who was running 3rd in GT. He blew the bus stop, and Robin Liddell has moved into 3rd in class. His first in class, Andy Lally, and comfortably so. He's got 2 seconds over Joey Hand, so life looking good there. It will be 3 in a row for TRG if Andy can hang on for another lap. What a storyline that is for he and RJ Valentine. The old partnership coming back together for Kevin Buckler's TRG. and things looking good.
Well, the one thing, if you do blow that bus stop chicane, they told them in the drivers' meeting this morning, you do have to come to a complete stop. So it's just not a couple of seconds you lose there. It's a lot more, and Liddell was close enough to take advantage.
And we understand that 94 Turner BMW has come to pit road. Maybe the fuel bug has bitten them. Yes, it has. What a shame. The boys have done such a nice job. However, it is time to celebrate like you wouldn't believe. The most prolific winning duo in the history of Daytona prototypes will do it again at the World Center of Racing. Race number 100 for the DPs goes to the most successful team. That man's organization, Chip Ganassi, with Felix Sabates. The Telmex BMW Riley wins again. That makes 6 from 8 in 2010. Irrespective of the penalties, the fines, they have prevailed.
There's just no stopping these guys right now. I mean, unbelievable.
And I tell you what, it doesn't matter how determined you are, how much emotion is there, you still have to execute, and that's what this team continues to do.
It is the 29th Grand Am Rolex Series win for the Chip Ganassi organization. How about for Kevin Buckler's organization? And here's a nice little story. It was Chip Ganassi who encouraged Kevin Buckler to go NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing. So two teams, very successful day. Different classes, the same result. And that's victory.
Joey's hand pit stop will have probably cost him a podium position here. I think once the timing and scoring cycles, it'll be Liddell in second, and Siegel will be back on the podium possibly.
And breathe a sigh of relief if he can get there. But well done. Andy Lally, remember, he's off to the World Cup Street Luge event in Portland, Oregon tonight to race early tomorrow morning. It's victory in Daytona for the TRG boys. Lally and Valentine, the old partnership, back together. And Kevin Buckler calling the strategy. His boys have done it. In the last 3 races, 3 victories for the famous 66.
Welcome back to Daytona. Ganassi in victory lane. Once again, let's go down to Chris.
Well, Scott Pruitt giving his teammate Memo Rojas a hug down here after this week. 25 points penalizing the drivers, the team, the manufacturer. $15,000 and 75 pounds in weight. These guys obviously very happy. It couldn't have played out better. Scott Pruitt going around. Big high fives by the whole team. Scott, what a week. As you guys are closing in on this championship, is this going to be the most satisfying win of the year?
It's awful sweet. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, the good Lord was looking down on us. Everything worked our way. All the other guys had problems, especially the guys that were complaining a lot. But Memo did just an awesome job. The BMW ran great. All the Ganassi guys, Telmex, Carlos Slim's here. So with all that, today is just awesome here in Daytona.
Is this the redemption you guys were looking for?
It was awful sweet. I had my family at home. You know, there's nothing like it. You could certainly tell the weight. I just couldn't get in under braking. You didn't have the acceleration. But all in all, it worked out.
Well, this is exactly what this team wanted, and they did it.
Superb performance, and as we said earlier, that's win number 6. They are closing in on the record of the Gainsco organization's 7 wins in season 2007 as we review the results. Really pleasing for Car 8, Car 60, for the Starworks organization, and for Mike Shank, both being on the podium.
Yeah, BMW 1-2, that says it all. 75 pounds on those cars, but they still beat everyone else today, Dorsey.
And for Ryan Diallo, he'd be so close if it wasn't for the guy in front of him.
Great performance from the TRG boys. We know that. I think the Stevenson group will be pleased with salvaging a 3rd place result there, and the frustration for the 94 machine of Turner Motorsport, what could have been if it weren't for those fuel dramas. To Brian Till.
Partnership of R.J. Valentine and Andy Lally works again. Andy, for you, this team, 5 races, 3 victories, but more importantly for you, this is going to move you up in the championship. Both the 70 and the 69 finished back behind you. I think you've been with 4 different teams, 6 different co-drivers, 5 different cars you've driven, yet you're holding on to the championship and another win for TRG.
You got that down. That's exactly what it is. Well, Advanced Aerosol Acquisition really came on board this weekend, and R.J. Valentine and I, again, are in victory lane at Daytona, and that's really cool. And Kevin Buckler and his whole crew just put a super solid car together, and it was very tough because we had, no practice time in the dry, and we just took our baseline from Daytona, which was very good, obviously, and went to town on it. Had a great battle with Joey. I always have a good run with him, the Turner guys, and I can't say enough. RJ and these guys, this TRG Porsche, and all the hard work that these guys are doing behind the scenes to make this happen and trying to get me to the rest of the season so we can try and win this championship is, I'm very grateful for that.
And RJ, for you picked up right where you left off from Daytona from the Rolex 24. Now, you were only going to do a couple of races. Every time you taste the champagne, does it make you want to maybe come back and do some more?
It's always the point where you want to keep coming back, and then I said to myself, you know what, life's too short. So we came back this time, and being with Andy and TRG is just another, it's a highlight. I mean, the last time I stood here, we won the 24 Hours of Daytona. So, it was a great race.
And the chemistry here, guys, it doesn't get any better than this. Lee?
Well done. That's a hard day's work. Well done, boys. Awesome performance. And it really spices things up in the championship chase, Dorse. Look at that. 9 points the margin now.
And understand, Anthony Lally's not with one team. He's been bouncing between all different cars, different teammates, and he's still right there. If he could just solidify a deal, he could be a champion.
It'll certainly make it interesting come towards those closing races. And there we go, from 7 points to 13 points. The lead margin for Rojas and Pruitt over Ryan Dial. It's a day of what could have been for so many of the challengers. We're not done with yet from Daytona. More when we come back. Speed's coverage of the Rolex Sports Car Series is presented on Speed by Rolex, a crown for every achievement. And brought to you in part by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. Not just the winners are smiling here at the World Centre of Racing. There's some other guys who have kept themselves in championship contention. Right, Chris?
That's right, Lee. After parts failure at Mid-Ohio, Ryan Deal and Mike Forrest bounced back with a second place at Daytona. Ryan, great finish. Just 13 points back from Rojas and Pruitt. Is there time to catch him in this championship?
For sure, but a little bit disappointed just to kind of how much they pulled on us. We definitely felt like we were the best at the rest, and Star Wars crew today were phenomenal. Really good result for the Corsa Car Care car, and Mike did a phenomenal job as always, and we really needed this, I think. Bad couple of races, we needed to come back and have a strong one.
Good job, guys.
Tell you what, we talked about the 94 and how hot it was in the car. Joey Hand is cooked. The burger that was in the car is cooked, and Joey's going to eat a bite of it, I think. Joey, how difficult was it out there, and how difficult was it to save fuel there at the end?
Well, I mean, we were just saving everything. I mean, I was trying to go as hard as I could and save the tires, save everything. That's just what I do. I do it every week. It was pretty okay. I mean, the car was fast. That other car, Lally's, he's real quick. He was quick down the straightaway. I choked up an amateur. I got hit from behind by that Lux kid who thinks he's got some vendetta against me now. So I guess we do, I don't know, but that kind of took us out of it, and then I was just cruising, trying to survive.
Well, trying to save fuel to the end, but they needed to make that splash. We'll see if that competition with the 28 goes to New Jersey as we do. Lee?
Tell you what was huge there, Brian, was the fact that they able to stay on there and get that second place finish. I'm not sure if Liddell got caught behind Pruitt, not getting that extra lap. That saved them, I feel.
So we look forward to the next event on the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series schedule, and it is at New Jersey Motorsports Park. And it's always fast and frantic up there. Dorse, it's almost time to say farewell. What were your thoughts on the 100th race for Daytona Prototypes?
Well, it wasn't as it was scripted, that's for sure. You would have thought for sure that the 01 wouldn't win today, and a Mazda would have won in GT. It wasn't that way, and I would switch to a pizza for Jersey.
I tell you what, day of mistakes. I mean, the 10 car wasn't their problem.